in a second here.
Are we live? Hi, guys. Let me go back up and see who's here. Jennifer, you're here. Yay. I'll log on as me. Turn all my volumes down. I put my computer up higher for Christy and Vanilla Iced. I propped it up higher just for you guys, and I'm still inside instead of outside where I want to be because it's blazing hot outside. I know you guys from Mississippi probably don't want to hear me complain about heat, but we don't do that where I'm from. We don't do heat, not extreme heat. So let's see. Hi, Sleuthy by proxy. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Christelle. Did I say that right? It looks right. Hi, Bailey. Hi, where am I? Hi, Stacio. 303 Sleuthing. Hi, Renee. Hi, Vanilla Iced. Hi, Carly Mendola. First time catching live. I've been watching the replays, though. I'm excited to be here. We're excited to have you. Say hi if you're here. We'll get started in just a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yo. Do you guys like my shirt? Hi, Ken Adams. Free Britney, right? And I apologize for this little girl if she makes noise. She's new to our family. We just got her last weekend. Her name is Dixie. And she can't leave my side, so we're adjusting. My husband's not home, so we're adjusting to having a doggy. Hi, Maxine. So tonight we are going to start with a story about Christian. This one is from Alexa. She sent it to us. We had a special guest planned. Not sure if he's coming. He has some family stuff that's happening at home. He used to be a daddy, so maybe he'll be here. Maybe he'll be here next week. But either way, we're still excited to have him. I'm going to go ahead and read this. So she says, we said, tell us a story about Christian. You know, like we wanted to start out every single week with Christian being our focus. So she said, so it was like 6 a.m. one morning and Christian was used to being on the boat time. So when he was home, he would wake up at the same time in the morning for the first couple of days. So the lake was so dead, like absolutely no one was up on the lake. Hell, it was 6 a.m. This dude was in the back cove sitting on the handlebars of the jet ski backwards, trying to fling himself. I can't even read this without laughing. Trying to fling himself off. He came back smiling from ear to ear, saying that's how you would ride a bull. He would always be the first person on the lake every day on the jet ski or the boat, living his best life. He was always happiest when he was doing something stupid. It was the best story ever. Hi, Angelia. Hi, Anil's next. Yeah, I can't even read that without laughing because it's just hilarious. You just imagine like being like a 60, 70-year-old man passing by on like a morning stroll around the lake and seeing a young kid on the jet ski backwards. Hi, Katie, too. Glad you're here. Hi, other Jane Doe. So glad you're all here. Yay. Okay. So this week is going to be heavy. And so I'm glad we had that funny story to start out with about Christian. Thanks, Alexa, for sharing that with us. And when I say heavy, I mean we're going over the crime scene. So it's not text like last week heavy. This is just going to be... it is what it is. You know, you guys know what it is. So there will be, so what I'm going to start out with are the narratives. And I've highlighted the important parts of each narrative that cover just the crime scene. I mean, and the narratives they'll have more meat to some of them. And just because I don't read that part doesn't mean I'm glossing over it in any sort of way. I'm just pulling out the meat that's just crime scene related. And then of course, when we do autopsy or anything, I mean, there will be an episode we just go directly over narratives to show the lack of consistency in investigation. And so we'll get to the more meat of some of these later. These are just for the crime scene, like I keep repeating. And after this episode's over, if you're in our group, I'm going to dump them all into the group so you guys can see what I was reading from better than just up on the screen because it's kind of tiny. So get ready. This is a lot. Narrative number 5 was done. This says 4/6/14. I'll have to double check. No, this one's 2/26/2014. Sorry. The screen, like when you are in the case file and you're like getting things, like whoever copied, scanned things in, like they're all like crooked and not. It's hard to tell on some things, but you can see off to the right there. It says 2/26 and it's 2014. So this is, I think his name is Darrell. Darrell.
I would think.
Oh, wait. I promised I would do this. I have to do this first. So our first episode, I couldn't say a town name that they stopped to get gas in. And everybody, I probably got 5 messages with how to pronounce it and lots of comments in the group. So I'm going to do it for you. And if I do it wrong, then I will never show my face in Mississippi. So I was saying Picayune, and it's actually Picayune. Picayune. Did I do it right? Where are you? I know you're all waiting. Okay, tell me in the comments if I did it right this time. Picayune. Okay, so going back to, I said it right. Yay. Okay, good. I won't make that mistake again. Detective Thompson, he responded to 801 Deer Run. He walked into a white male that was located in the bathroom tub of the apartment. Upon arrival, I met with Detective Wilburn, who explained to myself and Detective Scott what we had. I started on the outside of the apartment and took pictures of the front door and address. I also need to stop here and tell you guys that some of these are very poorly written. I'm just going to read it as they wrote it. So if I'm not making sense, it's because it doesn't make sense on this. So I entry into the apartment and went upstairs to the bathroom where the body was located. I took pictures of the bathroom where the body was discovered. I took pictures of the gun that was located under the body. The gun was brown and silver. I took pictures of the body. The head was laying face down in a puddle of blood. I took pictures of a silver magazine that was located in the downstairs bedroom. The evidence was collected by Detective Scott. The evidence was sealed and marked by Detective Scott. I transported Whitley Goodman to the Meridian Police Department. I interviewed Whitley Goodman, the girlfriend of Christian Andreacchio. The next one is Officer Scott. He says, and this one was on 12/26/14, and there's a common theme in these narratives, and I highlighted it, and it says incident, suicide. We all know that this took place on the 26th of February, and they were already ruling it a suicide in their narratives. On the above date, Detective Scott responded to Willow Ridge Apartments, we know the address. At arrival, Detective Wilburn advised, there appears to be a suicide. So these detectives are arriving and being told it's a suicide. And the victim is upstairs in the bathroom. Detective Wilburn and myself, Scott, entered the apartment and went upstairs. Metro ambulance and coroner was on scene. The victim was slumped over in the bathtub with gunshot wound to the head. At approximately 5:40 p.m., I conducted a gunshot residue on the victim. While doing so, the butt of the pistol was visible between the bathtub and the deceased. I informed Detective Wilburn of the gun location. The gun was recovered, secured, and bagged by Detective Wilburn. Let's stop right there for a second. He says secured. He doesn't say anything about decocking the gun. He doesn't say about anything to do with decocking the gun. He just says secured. On the same date at approximately 6 p.m., I detected a gunshot residue on Dylan Swearinger, person reporting on scene downstairs in the kitchen. I collected one box of .45 caliber ammunition, black nylon holster, and loaded Kimber .45 caliber magazine from the downstairs bedroom. After the victim was removed from the scene, Detectives Wilburn and Scott collected a single .45 caliber projectile and .45 caliber shell casing from the bathtub. Detective Thompson photographed the scene. We'll go over the photos in just a minute, or after I'm done with these. I'm trying to go quickly through these. This next one, I think, is out of order. Sorry. This one's from Bratton, so I'm going to come back to that one. The next one is Lagoy. Okay. And this one was 2/26/2014 as well. It says, in reference to he responded to 801 Willow Ridge. They all start that way. In reference to a possible suicide, I made contact with Dylan Swearinger at the front door. He said his friend Chris was in the bathroom dead and pointed upstairs to the location. When I entered the home, Ms. Whitley Goodman was on the couch in tears, obviously distraught from the current situation. I went upstairs and looked in the bathroom, seeing a white male with his hands to his side, face down, going into the tub with his body outside of it. I could not see a weapon or injuries from the angle I had. I checked the pulse on the right wrist and could not feel one. I then leaned over as far as I could to see any injuries by grabbing the towel rack for balance and looked over the body. All I could see was dark red blood going down the drain. It appeared to be coagulating from exposure. I notified dispatch of the situation and waited for the first detective to arrive. Officers Gordon and Allen arrived at 5:04 and Lieutenant Massey arrived at 5:05. 3 EMTs from Metro Ambulance arrived at 5:08, the same time as Detective Wilburn, along with Officer Carter standing outside the doorway. The following investigators arrived on scene at 5:25. Detective Thompson and Clayton Cobbler, the county coroner. Detectives Ladding and Scott arrived at 5:43. A yellow crime scene tape was used to cordon off the exterior. Investigators took pictures and evidence from the location for the investigation. The next one is DeMarcus Wilburn on 2/26. Incident, again, noted as suicide. I don't know if you guys are all seeing that. Upon arrival, I spoke officers on scene and they advised the victim was upstairs in the bathroom. I went upstairs and located the victim bent over with his head in the bathtub. After the coroner came and I was able to retrieve the gun from under his body and placed it into evidence, I retrieved the bullet casing from the tub and placed it into evidence. I contacted the Christian Andreacchio victim parents and me with them and advised them of their son's suicide. After leaving,
Say that one more time so everybody in the back hears that it was called a
Louder for the
suicide
back.
that day.
Advised them of their son's suicide. After leaving from the parents' home, I went to the police station and took the statement of Dylan Swearinger, who found him dead. So he advised the Andrakio's of their son's suicide before he even questioned Dylan Swearinger, the person who found him dead. Okay, the next one is the Bratton one, and I probably will scroll back up to the other one. I'll see. I made a note on this one in red, and I'll go over it in 1 second. On August 6, 2015, myself and Assistant Chief Sharp went back to apartment 801, where the owner had given us permission to enter. We inspected and photographed the tub to see if we could see evidence of a bullet strike in the bottom or sides of the tub, as MBI reported, or as the MBI report suggested. Neither of us could see anywhere a .45 struck or scratched or penetrated the gel coat of the fiberglass tub unit. Let's repeat that. Okay, and so Bratton came on a year later at the request of, I believe, Chief DuBose, and he started investigating it. It has been said multiple times by the other side that there was strikes in the fiberglass multiple strikes in the fiberglass from where the bullet probably ricocheted. This Detective Bratton went to the apartment and looked, and there were no bullet strikes in the bathtub on 8/6/15. A year later, a year and a half later almost. Yeah, a year and a half later, they're not going to repair a bathtub without noting it. So we could put that to bed now, right? You want to go back up to that other one, Susan? Thank you. Then and like, this is one that I'm talking about. Like, it's a big meaty narrative, but I'm only pulling out the crime scene part right now. The ME put the time of death at approximately 15:45, which would be 3:45 on February 26, 2014. The 911 call was placed at 16:46, which would be 4:46 on that date. Statements in the case indicated that Dylan Swearingen, Whitley Goodman, and the victim were all in the apartment that day. The victim had come home early from his job off of a tugboat. Dylan left. We know the timeline. Dylan ran upstairs. Dylan returned, found the victim in the upstairs bathroom dead. He said he woke Whitley up, and she ran upstairs and began hugging the body while she called the police. The reason why I highlighted that, even though it's not crime scene related, is because later in the photos we have a diagram of where Whitley says that she was when she was hugging Christian, and we'll show you why that's important. Okay, so back down to, sorry, the one below the bullet strike one. Yeah, okay. And this is where Bratton explains that Chief DeBose asked him to come on and investigate, and he began organizing and reviewing the case. And then he says, in reviewing the photographs from the scene, okay, and also, if you scroll up a little bit, Susan, see where it says incident on this one? Oh, I guess it doesn't say incident. It says suspect unknown. It doesn't say incident suicide anymore. So it says, in reviewing the photographs from the scene, I began listing several questions about the positioning of the body and lack of blood spatter and the location of the weapon. While there were very few photographs of the scene, I talked to several of the officers involved also. There is a noticeable lack of blood or blood spatter anywhere in the bathroom other than in the bottom of the tub. The victim was right-handed, and the entrance wound was on the right side of his head with an exit wound over the left. There was a bullet strike next to the electrical outlet over the sink, but the projectile and shell casing were found in the bottom of the tub. In order for this scenario to work, the victim would have had to have been standing in front of or sitting on the toilet when the gun was discharged. The exit wound should have covered the bathroom mirror, sink, and wall with blood spatter. The projectile upon exit struck the wall adjacent to the electrical outlet and ricocheted into the bathtub where it was recovered. Detective Wilburn told me and Assistant Chief Sharp that when he removed the projectile and casing from the bathtub, the bottom of the tub could be seen, most likely meaning they were both in the tub before the blood covered the bathtub. Does that stand out to anybody? So the casing was sitting in the bottom of the bathtub, and blood was around it, and underneath the casing was free of blood. The position the weapon was found in is also troubling. It was found on the left side of the victim, between his chest and left arm, which were resting on the upper edge of the bathtub. Both arms were parallel to the body outside the bathtub. The weapon is a Kimber 1911 model 45 ACP pistol, and the hammer was forward. This type of single-action pistol will automatically cock the hammer after it is fired for subsequent firing of the next rounds. Unless the weapon was seriously malfunctioning, it was made safe by someone afterwards. Next one.
Hold on.
Okay. We don't want to convince anybody. We want you to make the decision for yourself. This isn't about convincing anybody. This is about putting the facts out there and and letting you guys make your own decisions without attacking.
Okay.
Okay.
I scrolled.
Okay. This is also another Bratton narrative. This one says, problems with the scene. NBI explanation about the hoodie absorbing all the exit spatter from the projectile. I don't buy into. No mention of this in the victim's clothing at the autopsy. They would have mentioned it at the autopsy. Scene photos show the victim with the back of his head visible. The hoodie is pulled down. If he shot himself in the bathtub with his head facing the faucet, would the bullet strike the bottom of the tub, ricochet upward, striking the shower side, cross the room, strike the wall next to the electrical outlet by the sink, and then ricochet back into the bathtub? You see where he's going with this? Would the bullet be a ping pong after going through a hoodie? Also, both arms were outside the tub, parallel to the body. We have a diagram coming up later. The pistol was located on the left side of the body, pinned between the victim's left upper torso and the bathtub. According to detectives Scott, Thompson, and Wilburn, the pistol's muzzle was pointed back towards the victim's right side. I'm probably backwards to you guys, but how can a gun be used this way and then turn around and go this way as it lands?
And also on this one, he even kind of touches on it. Christian's sweatshirt was covered in blood. If he was hanging over, it would only have spatter on it. It would not be covered because he would be hanging over. There was no way for it to all get on there. So he would have had to have been in a different position, upright for a while for what happened to his sweatshirt.
Where was I? Okay. Detective Thompson attempted to take pictures of the pistol when it was located, but the pictures are very blurry. No suicide note. We'll be showing the pictures of the gun that they had.
What was that?
You're right. So scroll one more up. This is also that same report, just further down. And he stated he had gone back to the apartment. Oh, this is, okay, sorry. This was an interview that he did with Taylor Dial, Christian's best friend. And this is Taylor's part of the interview conversation that relates to the crime scene. We'll get to the rest at a later date. But it says he stated he had gone back to the apartment with Josh Andrakio a few days after Christian's death. He recalled the Chick-fil-A bag was still full of food. He said there was one sandwich that had been partially eaten, but the rest of it was still in the bag. He thought that was odd.
And Dylan claims that Dylan and Christian ate and Whitley didn't. So that was another lie.
And we know that Christian didn't.
Right.
Because of how much was
his
found.
His stomach contents. Yeah.
Right. And the next one is also out of order, but it's fine because it's just stating Taylor Dial came to the station this afternoon and I interviewed him about his friendship with Christian. He said he had known Christian about 10 years or so, pretty much the same time as Jacob Golden. Jacob is somebody that we'll cover later. Taylor said he had also worked for Christian's grandfather and father and felt he was a pretty close friend with Christian. So. The next is narrative number 40 by Bratton. It says, I think it says I was going through it. Like that's another one I'm telling you, like they scanned crooked. Going through the crime lab reports and noticed that the Kimber pistol that was found at the scene had never been compared to the projectile that was found in the bathtub next to the body. The pistol had been test fired and submitted for IBIS. I requested that the crime lab compare the projectile to the pistol to verify that it was fired from the weapon found on the scene. We don't think that ever happened. That test never happened.
Gee, I wonder why.
They did test to see that if they could get it to misfire, to recock or decock or however, I mean, decock isn't even a word, but itself, we know that they couldn't get it to malfunction. Then he says later down, position of the body does not fit what allegedly happened. No blood spatter from a head wound in the bathroom. Cleanup, ? All blood was.
I don't know where that one went.
Oh, I know where it is. It's 2 more down. Sorry. I don't know how these got sent out of order when I click them right there. Sorry, guys. Pulled in the bottom of the tub. Both arms were outside the tub on either side of the body. Shell casing and projectile found in the bottom of the tub. Position of the victim does not support the projectile strike in the sheetrock on the opposite door side wall. No signs of a ricochet from the bottom portion or sides of the bathtub. There is a small scratch mark located on the upper left corner of the shower wall. So upper left corner, if you're in a shower, I'm assuming would be like the wall that comes out towards the inside of the bathtub, like where you would hang a shower curtain, I'm assuming. Position of the weapon, Kimber 45, found between the outer bathtub wall and the victim's waist. From the muzzle pointing to the victim's upper right, weapon was decocked with another round in the chamber. Someone made safe, ? Victim was shot with an entry wound behind the right temple. The entry would appear to be a contact wound with an imprint from the guide rod. Crime lab and investigators have been unable to find anything wrong with the weapon or make it malfunction. No blowback found on the weapon. No fingerprints found on the weapon. Dylan said he had handled the weapon earlier in the day and had even unloaded it. A few epithelial cells were located on the weapon and preserved by the crime lab, but are not enough for DNA reconstruction. Yeah. Hands outside, arms outside the tub do not make sense. Blood stain on victim's left pant knee cannot be explained. Lividity was contained to the victim's right side, does not fit the position the body was found in. And the reason why I highlighted that part was because talking about the crime scene and how it was found, and he remarks that lividity doesn't fit. So back up to the one that's marked 11117 Arrington in red on the side. Yep, that one. Okay, so this is when Detective Arrington takes over in 2017 at the request.
We just want to point out that's one detective so far that is not believing the suicide narrative.
Yes. Sorry, I should have.
We've been told so many times that MPD and blah 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 all say suicide, but here's one detective that's not agreeing with that.
If it was suicide, if it was self-harm or suicide, they would have came in and said, nope, there's nothing to see here, let's go home. They wouldn't have these lengthy narratives with questions themselves.
Lots of questions.
Here's another one. We all know who Arrington is. If you don't know who Arrington is, he's the last one that looked into it, and then he was, anyway, we'll get to that in the scandal part of the case. So anyways, Detective Arrington on 11117, this is narrative number 44. And like I said, I'll dump all these into the group. So if you're not in the group, join it. If the mods don't mind dropping the link for me, that would be superb. So again, a lot of meat, but it says, after reviewing the death scene pictures submitted in this case file, it was clear to me that the deceased had been moved from his original location where he expired. Lividity on the back side of his thighs and calves of his legs. This indicated to me that post-mortem, the deceased had pressure from the back side of the lower half of his extremities, meaning he had been moved after death. Secondly, examining the wound, being a contact wound from the right side of the skull, traveling out the left side of the skull in a nearly level trajectory, continuing the flight path unobstructed, striking the wall near the power receptacle. It was certain to me that the deceased was standing either in front of the toilet and had fell back onto the toilet, or sitting on the toilet at the time the weapon discharged, causing death very quickly. So there's two detectives that say the same thing. Further noted, the entire apartment was total filth, resembling a bar at closing time that had not been cleaned except for the bathroom area. It was obvious that the blood spatter from the original death scene and all around the body had been cleaned except for the bathtub area, and the pistol was in a location that was not consistent with the location when it fired the fatal shot. I want to discuss the crime scene, or not the crime scene, the apartment really quick. We spoke to Taylor a couple days ago, Taylor Dial, and he was there after Christian was taken from the apartment. And him and Josh walked into a very dirty apartment, beer bottles everywhere, cigarette butts, and we'll show proof. There's proof of that. Cigarette butts put out on coffee tables.
Holes in walls.
Dog feces all over the place. And Taylor reiterated that Christian was not a dirty person. He would never allow that. He would never come home and sit in filth and watch movies.
And he smoked outside. He never smoked inside.
So take that and file it away. Because when you see the photos, if you haven't seen the photos of the condition of the apartment, you're going to be mind blown. And dang it, I never checked that straw. Dang it. I will. I knew I was forgetting something. This is by Bratton, so we're we're out of order. I'm going to go back. But on the 3rd of March 2016, I received an email from Ray Andrakio that stated they had retained Knox and Associates for crime scene reconstruction. I called Todd Andrakio and discussed it with him. I sent the scene photos, a copy of the 911 call, and investigation narratives to him. The next day, he called me back and wanted to know if a crime scene. I think he's talking about he sent it to Michael LaFort, which is a guy that works for Knox and Associates. If a crime scene sketch had been done, and I told him no, but I would be able to go get the measurements of the apartment where the shooting occurred. I went back to Willow Ridge Apartments, and the manager let me into an adjacent apartment and said all the bathrooms were alike in size, and I measured it as the occupant of 801 was not home. I got the measurement and placed them in the PowerPoint presentation and emailed them to Mike LaFort. I told him they were from an adjacent apartment, but should be very close to the original. He also asked if I could photograph the projectile with measurements up close for him. I got the projectile out of evidence, photographed as requested, and sent them to him and turned the projectile back into evidence. We already read that one. The next one is, this one's Arrington again. I interviewed Detective Wilburn, who is a former detective with the Meridian Police Department and was the primary investigator in this case. This was also a recorded interview. I went through the interview, started with his memory of the incident, reviewing the case report and the death photographs at the end of this interview. Wilburn stated he had the same conclusion that I did in the case, but never considered that evidence tampering charge. The most disturbing thing about the interview is the fact that Wilburn stated he made the weapon safe but could not be conclusive about the hammer position. So no, sorry. Nobody in these narratives said that they decocked the gun. Sorry. I reviewed the crime scene reconstruction from the case file and found it to be very well done. This reconstruction will be used for court. What court? This is Arrington's narrative number 46. I conducted an interview with DeMarcus Wilburn, a former detective of the Meridian Police Department, about his participation and knowledge of the listed death case. Wilburn described the initial crime scene and stated that from the start, he suspected the crime scene as he found it was suspect. Further, Wilburn stated he fully believed the scene had been altered and did not believe the story given by Swearinger and Goodman. After being asked about the recovered Kimber .45 pistol, Wilburn stated he collected that firearm and cleared the weapon of the magazine and the live round that was in the barrel. I was very specific in asking the position of the hammer of the firearm and the slide position. Wilburn stated he remembered clearing the firearm and making it safe, but not be specific about the hammer position. Once again, could not remember if he decocted it. Nobody said that they have decocted it in these narratives. Stop saying that. This is Arrington again. On this day, I conducted an interview with Sergeant LaGoy about his knowledge in this case. This interview was recorded on video and will be included in the case file. Officer LaGoy stated he was the first responder to this death scene and stated he remembered being sent to a different apartment complex at first. LaGoy stated when he got to the death scene, he was met at the door by a white male identified as Dylan Swearinger. LaGoy stated he was told the deceased was in the upstairs bathroom, and going to the scene, LaGoy stated he observed a white female sitting on the stairwell, Whitley Goodman, and directed her to go sit on the sofa. LaGoy stated he entered the bathroom area and noticed the deceased on his knees leaning over into the bathtub. Katie, message one of the mods of the group, or myself or Susan or Jamie, and we'll see why you couldn't be added. After going back downstairs, LaGoy stated the white female, Whitley Goodman, stated she was in bed and heard the gunshot. Should I repeat that? Stated she was in bed and heard the gunshot and went upstairs and found the deceased and then called Dylan Swearinger. I questioned LaGoy and he stated he was absolutely certain about this statement. I found this information to be significant in this case. Further, LaGoy stated that the deceased had been drinking and taking drugs all weekend and was depressed because he had just lost his job.
Lie.
As I was discussing this case, I questioned LaGoy as to the scene, and LaGoy stated officers found a .45 caliber magazine under the covers in the bed where Whitley Goodman stated she was at. LaGoy stated investigators were notified of the find, and the investigator came and collected the magazine and placed it on a table and photographed it. It is noted that Daryl Thompson is the crime scene photographer in this scene. I further found this as significant information in this case. This fact that the statement made by Whitley Goodman contradicts her sworn statement, and that she has gunshot residue on her hands and part of...
That's out of order.
Sorry, guys. It's hard sending things over, and then when you send them over, it doesn't stay in order. Because I click photos and da-da-da-da-da. We're on Arrington. Drew
Isn't
Steele.
that it right there?
No, Drew Steele. Up. Up more. I see it. Right here. There. On this date, I made contact with Drew Steele, formerly with Metro Ambulance Service, and the EMT who responded to the listed death scene. This statement was recorded on video. Drew Steele stated he responded to the death scene and displayed excellent memory of the interior of the apartment. Steele stated the apartment was a complete mess and that it was obvious there was a lot of smoking and drinking like the interior of a nightclub. Further, Steele stated that there was dog feces on the floor, up the stairwell, but throughout the filthy apartment interior. Steele stated he noticed the interior of the bathroom area where the deceased was located was very clean. Another person that's saying that it was very clean. And he noticed from his experience of suicide scenes that the blood spatter normally found had been cleaned. Further, Steele stated that rigor had set in on the body that indicated the deceased had been deceased much longer than Swearinger and Goodman were indicating to the police. One thing that was noted, Steele stated was absolute about is that Whitley Goodman stated that during an argument, Christian Andreacchio had ran up the stairs, locked himself in the bathroom, and shot himself. I went on to further ask Steele if he was absolutely certain that Goodman had said exactly that, and he said it was, and he would testify to it in court if needed. I found this to be significant information in the deception of Whitley Goodman about the death of Andrakio. As I continued my interview with Steele, I asked him about the condition of the deceased body temperature, onset of rigor. Steele stated that I don't know where that one was. Sorry. Anyways, that I might have just cut that off because it goes into the autopsy. There were 2 other investigators present at the time of the weapon recovery, Chris Scott and Darrell Thompson. Inquiry will be made about their knowledge of the recovered weapon. This investigation will continue. It did not.
I think this goes to one of the ones
and that's the weapon that caused the death in this case was found under the covers in her bed. So what that goes up above to another one. The magazine to the weapon that caused this death in this case was found under the covers in her bed. So the magazine to the Kimber was found in Whitley's bed, in the bed with Whitley. Well, she wasn't found in the bed, but where she was sleeping. Or she said she was sleeping. So at this point, if family or friends or anybody that doesn't want to see crime scene photos are watching, look away. We don't want to put them out there, so we'll give you a few to get off of here in case you don't want to see. There aren't any photos of Christian. We're going to be very clear that we will never show photos of Christian, but there are some of the bathtub that just, I wouldn't want to see him if this was my son or brother or nephew or whatever. So,
and we should also point out the 2 detectives that came on later in the case both didn't believe what was happening and questioned the original people that were there at the scene, and those people didn't believe it was a suicide and felt things were wrong. So contrary to MPD ruling it a suicide and doing their job, blah, 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 all these people are saying, yeah, I don't believe it's a suicide, but that's what they went with.
And hearing these narratives being read out loud, like, I mean, I know we only have 35 people here, but reading these out loud, when I was going through and highlighting them, just hearing the inconsistencies between detectives, between Whitley and Dylan's story, like, how is this not enough for people to take pause and be like, something's wrong here? If this was truly a suicide, if this was truly self-harm, if Christian put a gun to his head and took his own life, there wouldn't be a need for any sort of inconsistency whatsoever. It would be that he went upstairs, took his life, Dylan came in and found him. Whitley either heard it or didn't hear it. And now we know that she did or she didn't, right? She says she didn't in her statement. She says she didn't in interviews, but she told 2 different people that she heard it. So,
and different stories.
And different
where
stories.
She was.
So
and what, and him being at home drinking, blah, blah, blah. It's all lies.
If you're a logical person, if you take these inconsistencies alone, throw away the text messages at this point, right? Like, throw them away, all of them, because they don't matter anymore. Because what matter at this point are these inconsistencies in these narratives. These stories that were told, these lies that were told, and these detectives that believed that something shady happened. And this narrative that's being spun by the other side of nothing nefarious is in the case file. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. How can anybody look at this and say that this was self-harm after what we just read?
And we haven't even gotten to the science that proves it's absolutely impossible to have happened, him doing it and landing the way he did and all the other stuff that goes with it. Impossible.
All fired up now. Free Britney. Okay, so these photos right here, we're just going to go through and explain what's in these photos. Okay, so when this case file first was released, one of the major reasons that made us be like, what's going on here? Why are we being shown half-truths? Is because this photo, I'm pointing at my screen like you guys can see where I'm pointing. Anyways, top left photo for me, so it should be, I think, the same for you, or maybe backwards, I don't know. The one that has like the bed frame and then the girl with the gun, blood spatter into butterflies. That's my first photo that I'm looking at. And okay, so what we were shown, what all of Facebook that followed along with this case after culpable was released was shown, was this photo. However, they cropped it. And what they cropped it to show was half of that, I keep pointing like you guys can see, half of that girl with just the blood and then a little bit of the wall, right? And several of us were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a Banksy. Like, this art is Banksy art. And so Susan went in and was like, look, you guys are being deceitful. You're trying to make this seem like this means that he was suicidal because this art decal was on a wall.
And they covered up all the butterflies and made it a blue screen.
So it would just look like Spatter.
They tried to pass it off saying, no, there's a blue wall there.
Not knowing that that people with any sort of brain would know that that was Banksy art, and no, why are you cropping it? So when we got the case file and we saw, holy cow, like the detectives didn't crop this. This was them cropping this. Why? Why would you need to be deceitful in that way?
And when we say them, it's the people that are pushing the suicide narrative.
Right. Sorry. The other side. So what this art is, first and foremost, this wasn't even Christian's room. This was Josh's room. This art wasn't even Christian's. It was Josh's. It's a Banksy art piece. And as you can see, yes, there's a gun, blood spatter into butterflies. Why?
And it actually has nothing to do with suicide. It's a political statement.
And if anybody knows who Banksy is, all of his art is political statements or social statements, not that had nothing to do with self-harm or suicide. And that one of the things that grinds my gears. The next photo is the hole that was noticed in the wall. And we aren't sure if that was there prior. I can't imagine Christian or Josh being okay with that hole. Yes, the hole in the wall is in Josh's room. That's Josh's room. It was not Christian and Whitley's room. The next photographs are the downstairs living room coffee table. Now, if we take a look at that first photo on the left, something that I noticed the other day, and my husband gets a 32-ounce soda every day on his way home from work, and I meant to take a closer look at the cup after it had been sitting for a while. But if you look closely, and we'll drop these photos in the group, just these ones, if you look closely in that photo, again, I'm pointing at my screen, there's a bubble in the straw. Get really close to your computers, I guess, or your phones. Get really close.
Right here.
There's a bubble in there. Like, if you take a drink out of a straw, you know how, like, the bubbles will sit in the straw for a while? To me, that says that whoever was drinking from that cup took a drink relatively close to when that photo was being taken, or else that bubble would have been evaporated and gone. I could be wrong. I'm human, and I reminded myself to look at my husband's straw, like, after a few hours, and I completely forgot. But if you take notice, there's a makeup brush there. To me, I'm assuming the makeup was being put on right there while drinking out of that Chick-fil-A cup. Also, take a look at those beer bottles. Christian was found with no alcohol in his system. There's cigarette butts put out on the coffee table. The Chick-fil-A bag, right, that we've been led to believe that everybody ate except for Whitley, right?
Right.
Okay, everybody ate except for Whitley. That bag is full of food. It's leaning. An empty bag with just wrappers in it isn't going to lean. The keys, looks like somebody took a key off, keychain, set it down, took another key off the keychain and set it down. We believe that's a Jeep key and a house key, apartment key.
And there's a SIM card.
Yep.
Over by the cigarettes.
And the brand new carriage for a brand new SIM card is right there too, right above it. The piece of metal that holds a SIM card when you break it off to put it in a phone is right there in between cigarette butts. And a ring over in front of that candle. And you can see it's disgusting. Like, who puts cigarette butts out? Who puts cigarette butts out on the table? A Jaeger bottle on the desk. Just messy stuff over there on that desk. Messy. And people have said that Christian was a very clean person.
And the cigarette ashtray right there. And once again, he didn't smoke inside. So someone was sitting there at his computer for a while, smoking lots of cigarettes.
And he had been gone.
Yeah.
For days. The 22nd to the 26th. 4 days. Okay. Look away if you're going to get squeamish. This is crime scene. This is where it's getting messy. Okay. So, okay. That top left photo is the blood after they took his body out. And I believe that's the casing. It's just very poor crime scene photography. We don't know whose keys those are. They fit a Jeep key shape, but we don't know for sure because they didn't get returned. That mark next to the outlet is the alleged bullet strike that they discuss. Hi, Julie.
I'm not sure.
You're not too late. Huh?
I'm not sure I agree with that mark being anything related.
It's a bone of contention. I wish they would have tested the bullet. They still can. They have it.
Yeah.
The next bottom left photo is the gun underneath Christian. This is the only photo of Christian that you guys will see from us. It's not even a full photo. It's just the location of the gun. As you can see from the bottom photo, right directly below that and off to the right, there's another photo. You can see that the back of the gun is the part that has the silver. So you can see that's Christian's left leg. You can see that the handle of the gun is pointing, or the barrel of the gun is pointing right. It's just very hard to tell because it's a blurry photo, but it's quite obvious the direction the gun is pointing because you can line up the wood part of the gun and then the silver portion of the gun. And then next to the gun in that top right photo is a Dos Equis beer. Christian didn't drink Dos Equis. Several people have said that Christian didn't drink Dos Equis beer. We'll get back to that. So that's the Kimber that's on the counter. And I know nothing about guns, so somebody chime in here. Is that decocked right there? Somebody help me. And I'm not even going to pretend for 1 second I know anything about a gun. So. And then the bottom right photo is the photos that were taken later by, I believe, Josh took those ones. Or it could have been detectives too. We know that there was photos taken by an iPhone, and that's the dried blood. And if you notice in that photo that something that's always been really weird to me is the top part of the blood, like it's all dark blood and dried, but the top part isn't dried. I don't know if something made it wet. There were photos that we'll show you in the Knox report that show like the Chick-fil-A cup in the tub and stuff. We just wanted to pull these ones out because they were the ones that we could pull out out of the actual case file without having Christian's body in them.
I think I might have covered the one with the Chick-fil-A. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we can always put that in the group later.
Yeah. There's one that shows the Chick-fil-A cup in the tub, and that also there's no blood under it, and you can see where it was laying in that photo. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to go over is the DuBois report, and he was an investigator that was hired by a private investigator that was hired by the Andrakkios. Does anybody have any questions about those photos really quick? I mean, we're going to open the panel up soon, so just if we can get through these, save your questions maybe, and then we will come back to them, I promise. So the DuBois report, the parts that I highlighted, again, were just pertaining to the crime scene. We will go over we'll go over autopsy, body, all that kind of stuff late in a later episode. We just wanted to get to the crime scene. Yes, we are. I don't know if we'll do it on this live, Julie, but we definitely are going to go there. We will go there. We have proof of who drinks those type of beer. I don't have the picture right now. I'm just going to say it. There's proof that Jet Miller drank Dasaki's beer. There's a photo of him holding a Dasaki's beer that was posted on Facebook, right? So it's public. People see it. Okay. Probably going to get sued. Anyways. Yeah. So this is the board report. It says Ray and Todd Andrakchio to investigate and research the suicide in quotations case of their son Christian Andreacchio. Contact our team upon receiving various reports and evidence of the case, as well as investigating the scene of the incident ourselves. We decided to move forward with criminal investigation. Finding multiple inconsistencies and changing stories led us to believe that Christian did not commit suicide, or at least that the stories given to the police by the individuals on scene were inconsistent with physical evidence. Yeah, Stacy, I wish I could pull that photo up. I'll come back to that. And I only highlighted, again, pieces of the board report that pertain to crime scene. We'll come back to the rest. Promise you that. Recreated scenarios of the event to disprove the statements given to the police by Dylan and Whitley. Worked with blood, spatter, homicide, and forensic specialists to get a professional opinion of what happened at the crime scene. These are things that DuBoard and his employees did. The next slide is facts changing the dynamics of the case. Highlighted due to the positioning of the body, abrasions on Christian's face and nose, blood spatter, position of the firearm, and other physical observations of the crime scene, we established that the body had been moved, repositioned post-mortem. The strange part about the gun residue was the fact that Whitley and Dylan both had more GSR on them than Christian did. Louder for the people in the back. We'll get back to GSR, but louder for the people in the back. The strange part about the gun residue was the fact that Whitley and Dylan both had more GSR on them than Christian did. Both Whitley and Christian, I think he means Dylan there, it's a typo, denied being in the bathroom, touching the gun, and moving Christian. It was obvious that the bathroom had been cleaned prior to the police arriving. There was a large amount of evidence suggesting that a party or parties had been going on in the apartment while Josh and Christian were out of town at work. Josh and Christian were both very clean and orderly. Both always cleaned their rooms prior to leaving for work. When police arrived, there were beer bottles, cigarette butts, dog feces, whiskey bottles, and other signs of partying. The entire apartment was trashed, both upstairs and down. Strange was the fact that the upstairs bathroom, the scene of the event, had obviously been cleaned and was by far the cleanest room in the apartment. For an apartment with a single full bath and only a second half bath, the bathroom should have been the dirtiest room in the house, with constant use of drinkers during all the previous partying that week. So we're not the only ones that have a problem with how clean the bathroom was and how filthy the rest of the apartment was. And another person noted that Christian was a clean person. The firearm used, or odd facts about the investigation, the firearm used in the shooting was a 911 model pistol, Kimber Raptor 1911, chambered in .45 ACP. Means nothing to me, but I'm sure some of you guys can understand that. The pistol was a single action only semi-automatic handgun with a full magazine. After firing the first round, the hammer should have been in the quote cocked position with another live round loaded and in the chamber. One shot fired, another loads and is ready to fire again. When the pistol was found, the hammer was down in the safe position. This could only be performed manually by a second person. Christian was a dominantly right-handed shooter. He was right-handed in writing and other activities. The 1911 model pistol is designed for a right-handed shooter. The bullet entered the skull of Christian from right side and exiting the left. When police discovered the body, the pistol was found on his left side and was wedged neatly between his body and the tub. This is highly unlikely and improbable considering most suicides end with the firearm flying away from the body due to recoil. The pistol was placed in its final location by another person. So, thank you, Meredith. 1911. Why am I saying 1911? See, that's how little I know about guns, and I'm not even pretending to know anything about them. I will not. We have other people that will do that for us, and they will be around soon. Where am I? Okay, after discussing the crime scene with several veteran experts, it was determined that the position of the body was not consistent with the evidence or the statements given by the witnesses. In order for the chain of events to happen the way that Dylan and Whitley said, Christian should have been resting on the toilet or in the floor. I think he means on the floor. The next one. So that's the end of the Duke Board report. We are now on to the Arden report. I'm going to read Dr. Arden's qualifications for the people in the back row. If you guys don't know who Dr. Arden is, he's quite qualified to be a forensic expert on a case in Mississippi. It says, you have asked me to review materials to provide consultation in the field of forensic pathology, which I have practiced for more than 30 years. After receiving my MD degree from the University of Michigan in 1980, I completed training in anatomic pathology at the New York University Medical Center from 1980 to 1983, and in forensic pathology at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the State of Maryland, 1983 to 1984. I have been certified in both anatomic and forensic pathology by the American Board of Pathology since 1985. I am currently licensed to practice medicine in 5 states. I spent most of my career as a government-employed medical examiner. I mean, this isn't podunk, back hills, forensic. He's a forensic pathologist and also runs the local bar. I mean, we're talking like credentials up the wazoo. I finished as first deputy chief medical examiner and more than 5 years as the chief medical examiner of Washington, D.C. I am currently president of Arden Forensics PC, a consulting practice in forensic pathology and medicine. And I hold a part-time appointment as a forensic pathologist in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the state of West Virginia. I think that's enough on his credentials. We know the cases that he's covered. I mean, the DC sniper, he is paid before he finds anything. Before, not after, right? So it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter what his outcome is. The people already pay for it. So he's not being paid to give a specific.
Yeah, he had to do more than just get voted in to do his job. So I'm, again, reading just the parts that pertain to the crime scene from his report. We will come back to the rest at a later date. The ballistic evidence is inconsistent with him having shot himself there. Had Mr. Andrakchio shot himself while kneeling at or over the tub, the bullet would have continued to travel to his left after exiting his head and thus would have struck the wall or inside of the tub to his left, but no such bullet strike was found. Sorry, I just remembered that okay. If you are friends or family, you can come back now. We're done with the photos. I had promised that I would say that, and I forgot. If somebody can message too, like letting them know that they can come back, that would be great. I'm going to start over because I lost my train of thought. Had Mr. Andrakchio shot himself while kneeling at or over the tub, the bullet would have continued to travel to his left after exiting his head and thus would have struck the wall or inside of the tub to his left, but no such bullet strike was found. Note that a bullet strike in the wall above the sink vanity was found, demonstrating that a bullet would have had sufficient force to damage the wall or tub after exiting his head. In addition, for the projectile to have struck the wall behind him and still end up in the tub, that bullet would have to ricochet multiple times around the room, which, in addition to being unlikely and unsupported by evidence, still would not explain the bullet strike in the wall by the sink. I note that the Knox and Associates presentation also addressed various ballistic issues that are inconsistent with him having shot himself at that location and in that position, including the bullet strike in the wall by the sink, the presence of foreign material in the nose of the deformed bullet, and the evidence indicative of blood spatter on the opposite side of the bathroom. They also raised the issue of the gun having been found decocked, which further suggests that another party had manipulated the gun after Mr. Andrakio was shot, i.e. that the scene was staged. I'm going to say it one more time, that the scene was staged. And before I go on any further, when you say that Arden only looked at photos from the case file,
That's his job.
That's what they do. Cases are solved daily by forensic pathologists that come on years later, months later, weeks later, and look at photos because they can't physically go back to a scene because they don't leave a scene setting for years. It's what they do. Okay, the next one says, the death scene was staged. So this is his summary of opinions. The position of the gun between his left thigh and the outside of the tub is inconsistent with him having shot himself in the right temple. After shooting himself through the brain, he would have lost consciousness and purposeful motor activity immediately. This man is a forensic pathologist. Christian didn't shoot himself, throw the gun to his left side, throw his hands over the tub, drink some Chick-fil-A, do the hokey pokey. He died immediately. So the gun would have dropped to his right side and probably into the tub. He would not have been capable of wedging it between his thigh and the tub, much less on the opposite side of his body. Some other person had to place the gun where it was found after Mr. Andrakio either collapsed or was placed into that position. A staged death scene by itself is highly suggestive of and suspicious for, dun dun dun, a homicidal death. Hey, Larry. Should I repeat that again? A staged death scene by itself is highly suggestive of and suspicious for a homicidal death. Again, if it was self-harm, you don't have to do anything. You don't stage anything. You don't clean anything. You don't lie. And you don't have to investigate anything. The next slide says, his opinion regarding the manner of death of Mr. Andrakio in consideration of all of the inconsistencies regarding the gunshot wound having been self-inflicted in that location and position, the discrepancy between the reporting of his death and the evidence indicating that his time of death was much earlier, and the clearly staged death scene, it is my opinion that the manner of death of Mr. Andrakio is homicide and should be so certified. All opinions are expressed with reasonable medical certainty. I reserve the right to amend my statements or opinions if presented with additional significant information, as well as the right to rebut opinions expressed within my area of expertise, and he has never. He's not changed his report. He has not come back and said, I changed my mind. Nothing he has said has changed since the date of this report, which was October 6, 2016. So in 5 years, he has had every opportunity to come back and say, I changed my mind, and he has not done so. This next summary. This is a report from Gypsy Ward, one of my favorite people. The reason why I put this report in here, not Max Mays, is not Hayes, it's Mays, report in here is because Max Mays was another private investigator. Brandy, I know why, and I will get back to you in just a second. Okay, sorry. The reason why this report is in here and not Max Mays' report itself is because Max Mays was an investigator, a private investigator that looked into this case. And his report is garbage. I'm just going to say it. It's garbage. And this is one of the reports that the other side uses and says, but this investigator says that it was suicide. Well, first of all, he doesn't. Second of all, he didn't do any work. He went through the case file and said, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, this needs to be done. Didn't do anything. So how can he conclude one way or another without doing any actual work? So this is, Gypsy Ward puts in a report that says exactly what I just said. Mr. Hayes, it's Mays, read and documented the Meridian Police Department findings as far as the crime scene was viewed. He literally read the MPD reports and made a declaration or a report. Like, what did you do? He did not type up any conclusion as to whether he felt it was a homicide versus a suicide. He simply suggests that due to his findings, that the opinions of other experts be obtained, and hopefully these findings will help to end speculation as to what may have caused the death of Christian Andreacchio. So stop saying that he said it was a suicide. Stop lying about it. I'm looking right at my camera. I'm looking right at you. Stop lying about it. He doesn't say that. He doesn't do any work. He reads MPD's report, and that's it. I mean, legitimately, that's all his report is. We have no problem posting that in our group if anybody would like to see it. It's garbage. Mr. Hayes, Mays, wrote a 35-page report of his investigation as far as witnesses, crime scene findings, lab reports, and statements made by the Andrakio family. His full report will be in the case file for the review. Nothing further at this time. He legitimately line itemed everything that was in the MPD report, and that was his report. It was nothing. Like, did he get paid for that? I hope not. But if he did, he got paid first. Okay, so the Knox and Associates is our next report. Oh, Brandy, before I forget. So when you tried to join, something weird happened. It glitched on me. I don't know. But I remember your name, and I remember thinking, that's a troll, so I blocked you. I will go in and unblock you, and you can rejoin. I'm sorry for that. But it showed me that you were blocked from another group of ours, and then when I went to try to find you in that other group of ours, you weren't even in there. So I'm glad that you are here, and you are free to join, and I will get that fixed.
Or if one of the mods can go take care of that.
Yeah, if somebody can unblock her, she's blocked in Sleuth Syndicate and Christian Andreacchio, so if you could go and unblock her from both, I would love you for it. I'm getting to the Knox report, sorry. Okay, so in the Knox report, we have blanked out, photos. They are blacked out because they showed Christian. And like we have said time and time again, we will not show Christian. So the first one is the outside of the apartment, and this one just says at 4:45 on February 26, officers with MPD were dispatched to a reported suicide. Officers found Christian Andreacchio in the upstairs bathroom, face down with his waist resting on the side of the tub, upper torso inside the tub, and lower extremities outside the tub. The next photo, and I'm just going to briefly, we don't need to read word for word. You guys can see what it is. The next photo is just the stairwell. And this is an exemplar apartment, which was a mirror image. So they went into an empty apartment, and everything is the exact same size-wise, just where things would be on the left in Christian's apartments, on the right, and vice versa. The next is the bathroom. Again, it's an example apartment, and he took a picture of the outlet in relation to that vanity, probably so they could thank you, Vanilla Iced, and Jamie, and whoever else is helping. And then the next is the tub in the other apartment. So you can see what that tub looked like, empty, without any shower curtain. The next is a diagram that Bratton used for the measurements, and you can see how slim pickings you have with that bathtub and that wall, right? Like you can see that where we know Christian was. I think there's a photo of that in here. There's a stick figure photo. So if you look in front of the toilet, he would have been like
right around where that arrow is, just on the underside of that arrow that goes across the tub.
Yeah.
Like that would have been his left shoulder, probably, about the arrow.
And his feet were pointed towards the door. So he was laying out across the head in the tub, body out, legs, waist, dropped it down and out towards the tub. And the next diagram is measurements from in between the tub and the toilet and the vanity, and the height of the walls there. The next diagram is more measurements, and then you could see the bullet strike, where the bullet strike would be by that outlet. The next one was Christian in the tub. We're not showing that. The next one is Christian in the tub. We're not showing that. The next one says there were no visible bloodstains on either the bathroom floor or bathroom fixtures. This one also showed Christian. There was no blood on the floor or anything in the bathroom other than the tub. The next one is Christian wearing the hooded sweatshirt. We're not showing that. This next one says there are unknown stains circled, and then the bullet strike, but it says there were also unknown stains consistent in appearance, size, and behavior with impact blood stain patterns on the wall behind the sink vanity and to the right of the sink. So, did they miss a spot? Did they miss a spot? White tank top that was found behind the toilet. We'll come back to that. So this next one says cropped image of the crime scene. Unknown stains were not examined at the scene to determine direction. However, the large stain above the electrical outlet appeared to be traveling right to left with a slight upward angle when it impacted the wall, and surrounding smaller stains appeared to be close to circular, which means that they impact nearly perpendicularly to the wall. It is apparent from the photograph that the source of the blood was in close proximity to the electrical receptacle at the time that the blood was deposited. However, without an on-scene analysis to determine impact angles and locate the area of origin, location of the blood source can only be known generally. So what he's saying is it looks like that's blood. It looks like it was going this direction, but because MPD didn't do their job, we'll never know. The next is the bullet impact. There was a bullet impact defect on the wall to the right of the sink and next to the electrical outlet. We don't know if it was an impact or not. Hopefully one day they can test that bullet and show it. It's okay, Christelle. We'll come back to it.
I've already seen this one.
Yeah, this is also the blood that we showed earlier with the casing.
But also notice the darker red on the outside. And we'll probably talk about this another time because Christy knows a lot about it. But the blood changes color over time, and you can kind of tell by the color how long the blood's been there. So it's a very interesting thing that I hope to cover at some point. Because it also proves that he was there a lot longer.
We could go over it today since it's a crime scene.
Yeah.
If Christy wants to.
Okay.
And then the next photo was taken that night. And it's showing the blood on the exterior of the bathroom door and the wall behind the door. The transfer stains on the bathroom floor were not present when police first arrived. They appear to have been created when the body was removed from the bathroom. Dylan Swearingen, a friend of Andrakio, told police he came back from Best Buy and did not see Andrakio, so he went upstairs. Swearingen wrote that he noticed the bathroom light was on. We already know what Dylan's statement says. These photos are more that were taken later, and it appears to be impact blood spatter on the bottom exterior of the bathroom door. There was also blood spatter on the wall behind the bathroom door. And take note of this. Keep this in your mind because we're going to show the luminol photo later. And we'll show you why. We'll show you in a minute. This is impact spatter on the bottom of the bathroom door was traveling right to left and upward. There was also impact spatter on the wall behind the door. There was an area void of blood on the wall. The bathroom door was open at the time that the blood was deposited. So what he's saying is because the door was open in this position when this particular blood was deposited, there's no blood behind the door. So that door had to be open at that point. The next photo is the impact spatter that he showed in the above photo. And the void area. And then the next one is just a closer look at that blood. We could put this Knox report in our group too, since we redacted the photos of Christian. The next photo is after the body had been removed. Okay, take note right there. Look at that shower curtain. So Christian's body was outside of that shower curtain, right? So it wasn't leaning against that shower curtain. It wasn't pushing on that shower curtain. The shower curtain was hanging perfectly in that same position, and Christian's body was to the right of the shower curtain. Now, we've heard in interviews and whatnot that Whitley states that she went, and I think Dylan also says it himself. I'll have to, if somebody can back me up here or tell me if I'm wrong, sat her back against that tub in between the wall and Christian and was holding his hands. And that is how that gun slipped down to where it was, right? Look how small that space is. I'm literally talking about just where the shower curtain is. Look how tiny of an amount of space that is right there.
Like a 6-year-old can maybe fit there, but I don't even know about that.
Right. I mean, we know she's not a big girl, but come on. Why would she sit with her back there and hold him that way? Like, why wouldn't she grab onto him and, pull him
back and try CPR? Yeah.
Right. Hold him. That's her boyfriend, the love of her life. The next photo is blood transfer on the bathroom floor did not correspond with impact spatter on the bathroom wall. So, I mean, we can all come to our own conclusions here. The bathtub after, here's the Chick-fil-A cup for everybody. The bathtub after Andrakio had been removed. The Chick-fil-A cup, I hope no family is watching right now. I'm sorry if I didn't give enough warning. So 2 squares of the tile, about 1/3 of the width of the bathroom door. The Chick-fil-A cup is right, kind of center.
Just sitting there, chilling.
Towards the outside wall of the bathtub. You can see it. It's that white circle.
Right here.
And of course that blood is after it had dried and whatnot, but there's still wet blood in there. And then this is what they call satellite spatter. We'll talk about it, Christy. So Knox is pointing out the satellite spatter. And then the transfer on the floor was created by Andrakio's body being removed from the bathtub, which is common sense. We're not going over injuries. We'll come back to that in his report later. The location of the pistol is next.
I'm getting there.
I know.
What's a scrolling? Long
Well,
report.
it is a long report. That's why I was like, I can't screenshot this. Can we block out photos? This is the gun, the magazine, a bullet. I believe somebody, and then the bullets that were in the gun itself in that bag. Actually, it says right here. The semi-automatic pistol bearing serial number blah 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 was found lying under Andrakio's body inside the tub. He's wrong, it's outside the tub. There was 1 live cartridge in the chamber, and the magazine contained 6 live cartridges. And the next photo is the gun with the slide stop, the thumb safety, the grip safety. This gun has 2 safeties on it, and the magazine release. That's the left side of the pistol. This is the back of the pistol in the next photo. Clearly the back of the pistol that was lodged between his leg and in the tub. You can see like the gray is the same gray that was in that photo. It says in the next one, I'm just going to read this we don't need to see the photo. The pistol was found between the front of the left leg and the exterior side of the bathtub. According to the police department, the pistol was found on the left side of Andrakio between his chest and left arm. That's wrong. But maybe it's a narrative that I didn't read.
It's wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong. An email received from Meridian Police Department Special Investigator Jerry Bratton, it's corrected right here, clarified the location and the position of the pistol as follows. The pistol was found pinned between his upper left torso and the side of the bathtub, with the barrel pointing towards his upper right side, handle to the left. So the above statements by investigators in their reports as to the location of the pistol appear to be incorrect. The pistol was actually located on the exterior side of the bathtub under the left hip and in front of the left leg. And there's again, in the next photo, you can see it. See, that's the back side of that pistol there. You can't deny that that's the back side there. And that's Christian's left side of his body. And he says the position in which the pistol was found is inconsistent with a self-inflicted gunshot wound scenario, because the pistol would either 1, remain in Andrakio's right hand as he fell to the bathtub, or 2, fall from his right hand prior to his body falling. In either scenario, the pistol could not end up pinned between the left side of his body and the tub. Furthermore, there exists no mechanism that would allow for the hammer to decock without firing the chambered cartridge. If the slide cycled and ejected the fired cartridge case, as it is apparently did, then the hammer would have necessarily been cocked by the action of the slide. The only way to decock this type of pistol is to drop the hammer by pulling the trigger. This pistol is equipped with a firing pin safety that prohibits forward movement of the firing pin unless the safety is disengaged by rearward movement of the trigger. In this event, the hammer falls without the trigger being pulled. The firing pin safety would prevent discharge. However, the hammer would have to leave the seared position, which is extremely unlikely to occur due to a drop of short distance, as would have occurred if Andrakio dropped the pistol after shooting himself. I think you guys get it. The next photo is the gun on the counter next to the Dasaki's beer. Hammer was decocked in that photo. Swabs.
Notice the beer.
They took swabs from the handle and magazine, produced partial DNA profile that may be a mixture. However, no further information could be obtained. Again, photo. Front rim of the sink and on the front edge of the vanity were multiple unknown stains. These stains were similar in size and appearance of blood stains. There were no photographs taken or swabs collected. If the stains were blood, the source remains unknown. Now, was that Christian's blood? Was that somebody washing blood off their hands and it dripped there? Like, we'll never know because of a shoddy investigation. And next photo is unknown stains. I believe so, sleuthy by proxy. Next photo is more stains. They were not. photographed and collected for analysis. He's finding this by zooming into photos. What's wrong with these people. The next one is more stains. The next one is the bullet itself. The bullet recovered from the bathtub had a substance embedded in the nose. Hopefully that can be tested soon.
And also note, this type of bullet is supposed to mushroom when it goes through flesh, and it did not mushroom. So I find it really hard that the bullet malfunctions, the gun malfunctions. I mean, come on.
The next photo shows the bullet. One side of the bullet was saturated with blood.
From where it was laying in the tub.
The next is the ejected cartridge case was found inside its bathtub, indicating that the pistol action cycled without malfunctioning. And this is his conclusion. I'm going to read it quickly. When evaluating an equivocal death case, if it is inappropriate to assert a positive outcome, in other words, one must not conclude that a particular outcome occurred to the exclusion of all other possibilities without first eliminating all other possibilities. In this case, the death of Christian Andreacchio could have been the result of either a suicide, homicide, or accident. The latter can be ruled out on the basis of a complete absence of evidence that indicates an accidental manner of death. There is no evidence to support the conclusion that the pistol discharged for any reason other than an intentional pull of the trigger. So throw accident out. Throw it out. The probability that Christian Andreacchio's death was a suicide is remote for the following reasons. 1, the reported location and position of the pistol is inconsistent with a self-inflicted gunshot wound scenario, but is consistent with having been placed there after Andrakio's body came to rest. 2, the location of the apparent bullet impact on the wall adjacent to the electrical receptacle does not align with the wound path through Andrakio's head, but instead indicates that his head was facing away from the bathroom mirror when he was shot, a position that is inconsistent with his position of final rest, in which his body was facing 90 degrees clockwise from the position he would have been when shot, while facing the mirror. There is no impact spatter associated with the gunshot wound documented anywhere in or around the bathtub. There is no drip blood on the floor outside the bathtub. There is impact spatter consistent with Andrakio's head being above the level of the sink but below a fully standing attitude when he was shot. There is post-mortem lividity that is inconsistent with his position and attitude at final rest. And 7, the position of the pistol's hammer uncocked cannot be explained under any potential suicide scenario apart from supposition that the hammer position was due to some unexplained, uncorroborated mechanical malfunction, which, as a matter of mechanical engineering, is wholly unsupported by the evidence and the history and design of the firearm. It should be noted that this is not an exhaustive list of reasons why the probability of suicide is remote. He's saying that's not enough. That's not all of his reasons. There's more. While the gunshot wound in and of itself cannot be ruled inconsistent of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Forensically, there is no difference between a gunshot wound that is self-inflicted and one that is inflicted by another with the pistol in the same position relative to the body. The two cannot be distinguished in absence of other physical evidence, in particular blood spatter associated with the gunshot wound on the hand of the victim, a matter about which is the documentation in the case is agnostic. However, barring some reasonable, scientifically supported explanation for the blood spatter in other areas of the bathroom and the uncocked pistol hammer, suicide can be excluded as a possible manner of death. Can be. It can be excluded. Say it again. It can be excluded as a possible manner of death. It should be noted that the scope of this analysis involves only physical evidence, no analysis of the investigative, criminological, or victimological evidence in this case has been undertaken by Knox and Associates LLC. However, in light of my review of the physical evidence in this case, it is my professional opinion that the death of Christian Andreacchio was the result of a homicide. A homicide.
So he only looked at the scene, right? He didn't even bother looking at the reports.
Nope.
He just looked at the scene and came to that
Just
conclusion.
Just the scene.
Just making sure, because that's...
And drum roll, please. Our next bit of evidence for your viewing pleasure. Not that any of this is pleasurable, because Christian's death was a homicide, not a suicide. Is...
I'm getting there.
I'm antsy. I'm sure we have 25 people in the chat. I'm sure they've seen it. I don't know how many are watching without being in the chat.
Let me go to it. There we
go. Sorry. Telling people they can come back now. Okay. This, my friends, is called luminol. And they used Blue Star. This photo is if you're standing, or this photo is a side by side. So it's two photos put together in a collage. And I'm all antsy. The photo on the left is from the bathtub looking towards the door. And you can see where it hit blue. And you can see where it was the brightest in this photo. Thank you, Susan. The top of the door casing and in the door casing and the adjacent wall, right? So the wall that runs along where Christian's body was found. Top to middle, like Knox said, right? That the gunshot, let me go back to that. You don't have to go back. I'll just go back really quick. He said that the position of the body was higher than the sink, but not all the way up. See where that blood is? There's nothing below it, right? It's not marked in blue. Down low towards the floor. The next photo next to it is if you're standing inside the bathtub looking out towards the door, that's the shower curtain rod up above. You can see how bright that is, right? Up on the wall, above the door, up on the ceiling by the vent, on that wall, to the right of the door. If you're standing in the tub, it's to the right. Bright blue, right? So now I'm going to read what he wrote under it. He says, I used a variant of chemical called luminol and a proprietary variant called Blue Star to detect trace amounts of blood in the bathroom. My examination revealed reactions consistent with blood above the bathroom door, on the adjacent wall, and on the ceilings in locations consistent with Andrakio having suffered this gunshot wound while in a position in the approximate center of the bathroom at a height aligned with the bullet impact near the electrical receptacle. The reactions were photographed. The reactions were consistent with the mist-like spatter commonly associated with gunshot wounds. And although the bathroom had apparently been repainted subsequent to the incident, reactions through paint have been shown to occur. In this case, the reactions were strongest in areas that would have likely not been as thoroughly cleaned as other areas of the bathroom, and the mist-like nature of the spatter would likely have rendered it practically invisible to the unaided eye. So what that means is Christian was shot in the middle of the bathroom, that whoever cleaned this bathroom was messy cleaning up top because probably couldn't reach it as well as the rest of the bathroom. And you can say what you want about luminol testing. You can dispute luminol testing. You can say whatever you want about it, right? You can say that other people lived in the apartment. How many people have died in that apartment since February 26, 2014? You can't dispute.
Or get body fluid way up there.
Right. I mean, what's going on in this bathroom? So that is all of that. Our next, I'm sure you guys have a lot. There's more. Okay. Christy, are you still backstage?
Yeah, she is. I'll add her right now.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Where are we? Sorry.
Hold on, let me.
Are you ready for yours?
What are we talking about first? Oh, my Legos.
Your reconstructions, yeah. Go ahead and explain what they are for the people.
Okay, I gotta pull up a screen here, for my notes. Okay, so, back in 2019, before we were getting snippets of the case, and we got part of that presentation, and it talked about the parameters of the bathroom, and I was trying to wrap my brain around the bathroom and how he's positioned, and Susan and I would go back and forth and trying to figure out, how tall he was, and we would go in our bathrooms because it's hard to fully comprehend, right? So my son has a lot of Legos, and I built this Lego bathroom. First, I started off with I have a dollhouse that I built for my girls, and I entered it into the state fair, and it's beautiful. It's 3 stories, and I hope they fight over it when I die. So, but I have these like doll figures that are like, they have opposable arms and everything, and so I can move them around. And so I was trying to recreate some of these positions and scenarios that we were going over, mainly like, how could have this happened, right? So, but it wasn't quite right. So I built this Lego bathroom, and it's exactly 1/10 scale. I have another, I mapped it out on a piece of paper, and I measured everything. I had rulers, and so this is the bathroom at 1/10. I do not have the cupboard that was above the toilet because I have limited supplies, and Legos are expensive. So we would go to this store called Bricks and Minifigs, and they have these big open vats of Legos. And so I would pick through and get all the white pieces because I wanted a white bathroom. And the more, so some people, they like to make fun of me and my little Lego creation. But it really helped me conceptualize things. I also, what's not on there is I made a Lego guy. I made a Christian Lego guy. Now, he's not like a minifig. I used a Lego, the type of Lego, it's called, it's called, what is his, they move their, like, robots, or, no, anyway, I'm gonna think of it. And so I made this Lego guy, and he had movable arms, and everything was movable. He had knees, he had hips, he had a spine. I was pretty proud. It was pretty cool because I didn't have any instructions, and my son was like, when can I have my Legos back? But I had a little Lego gun, and it helped me understand the scene a whole lot better. And so I did enter it in the state fair, and I won best in division because it's a nice looking bathroom, everything works on it. The pictures you don't have in there is I put my little Lego guy, and he was the Christian's height, exactly the right height, and I glued on like a toothpick to his head, and I tried to get the trajectory for the outlet above the sink or to the light switch, right next to the light switch. And there's just no way there would be, if he sat on that toilet and he took a gunshot and he shot himself that way, there'd be blood that other direction or blood on the floor. I just don't, I think that's a red herring. Susan said that. Yeah. And I think the light switch is a red herring. I really do. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it's involved, but so I tried to, I couldn't let that distract me. But in the tub, now not on here, but So that's my Lego creation. Did you want me to say anything else?
No. I mean, say whatever you want about it. We don't
Okay.
make fun of you because we think it's amazing, and I will never forget.
So-
I will never forget Whitley.
Oh yeah. So I had my my people that I originally had were like from this Fisher Price. I think Dylan was of African American descent, and there was 2 females, and there was a Whitley and Christian. But I couldn't move their arms the way I wanted them to. I have poured over these pictures a lot, and the blood in the tub, I just want to point out there are some things that
Do you want us to go back to that picture?
Yeah, go back to the picture of go back to the one where the cup is not there. I mean, you could do the one where the cup is there, but the other side said that, and even the coroner, he said he was leaning over the tub, right? And he had his head down in the tub, and he turned his head so he wouldn't make a mess, right? So he thought he was being polite in, or, thinking about the mess in the tub.
Yeah.
Which doesn't work at all. I mean, if that's what he did, then I don't know how his arms got outside the tub, because you're leaning over the tub. The gun is going to fall in the tub. You're right there. And your hands, I don't know about the left hands. They think there are 2 hands. So they got 2 hands. They're leaning over the tub. There's something called center of gravity. And I'm just not sure that he would be able to balance himself with so much weight forward. I think he would have fallen in the backside. Oh, wait, what was that one? No, get a closer one. What's the one below that?
You want the bright red one or the...
No, that one works. That one works.
Okay.
I have 2 screens up, and it's funny to see the delay. I had to delete it. Oh, I'll wait till the...
You can see right here where the outline of the cup was.
Yes, that's where the cup, and it was originally laying down, and it was, and then they stood it up. But if you look above that to where his head was, that's his profile. That is his face, and he is looking left. That is the profile of his face. His nose, it's his forehead and his nose. And I matched it up, and that his face is looking left. How does that reconcile with... And when you're dead, you fall. It's dead weight. You just fall to the ground. There's no like, oh, I think this hand will catch the gun, and it's going to fall on the left side, and then my hands are going to go outside the tub. There would be... It's just impossible. Either way they want to say it. They say he was looking left, and he was shooting, they said he's self-harmed looking at the faucet. If that's what happened, there's no way his head would then turn to the left, completely to the left, to look the other direction. It just does. Bionicle, somebody said it. Thank you, Jennifer. The Bionicle was my Lego dude that I made him out of. But his head just would not look, it wouldn't turn. You're looking at the faucet of the tub, and that's how they say he was. And they pulled the trigger. He's dead right there. There's no his hands getting outside the tub. There's no slow motion, like, see in the movies, and they fly 8 feet or whatever. None of that is happening.
Right.
He's dead right there. So if he was looking at the faucet, how did his body how does his arms get outside the tub? How does his head turn left the other direction? And how does the gun get on the left side of him? So for me, this opens up a whole new can of worms, because if that's where he was, if he was standing, if he was standing looking at the wall, even then, how does the gun get on the left side? He was Maybe they were inside the tub. I don't know. But all I know is that when he came down, his head rested there. That's where his head was. And it was so much so that he has a profile of his face there. Sorry, people should look away. Family, look away.
Yeah. You want me to take it off the screen now?
That's fine. Does anyone have any questions? That was a big game changer for me.
Or not gotten off the boat, Julie. Sorry. Julie just said if that were the case, wouldn't he have sat in the tub or left the house and went somewhere secluded? I think so. I mean, why would he even have gone home?
Why? And why did he still have his shoes on?
Without socks.
Without socks. He'd been there for hours. Hours.
Susan, do you want to drop the link to the panel? Because I know that there were some people that were talking about possibly coming up, cough, Julie, cough, this week too. So, I didn't say bark.
Sorry, that was solo.
Come up and join us for this discussion because we poured a lot on you guys today with the reports, with the narratives, with who is that?
They need to unmute their mic.
Unmute it. Come on. My audio is poppy. I'm sorry. Did somebody say
It's
that?
okay.
So low.
Someone's shy.
Who are they?
I think it's my sister.
Oh, you think so?
Yes, I know so.
Oh, okay. Unmute yourself. Does she not know how?
I think she wants me to take her out.
Oh.
Come on.
Ignore her. Okay.
I guess.
Anybody else want to come on? So we dropped narratives on you guys. We dropped reports on you guys. We dropped photos. I mean, we're getting deep. The last 3 weeks, we've been doing this for 3 weeks now, and I just, you guys have to have questions. Somebody asked a question. Christelle asked earlier about, I don't know if she's still here. I don't see her commenting, but about the tank top that was behind the toilet. Okay, so it wasn't a tank top, it was a t-shirt, and we don't know what happened to it. It was turned over to law enforcement, and it doesn't exist anymore. So it's just pure speculation at this point.
And don't forget about the questions that were on that thread.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Angelia had made a post in our group earlier this week asking if there are questions about the crime scene, and some of you guys asked good questions, and so I'm gonna go grab those really quick. Okay, so some of the questions. Shannon asked, in the crime scene photos, it looks like a single Jeep key and a lockbox key on the coffee table. Whatever happened to those keys? Were they taken to evidence? Susan, do you want to answer that?
I'm sorry, I was responding to something. What was that?
In crime scene photos, it looks like a single Jeep key and lockbox key on the coffee table. Whatever happened to those keys? Were they taken into evidence?
Oh, I think we don't know, right? Didn't we discuss that earlier, that those are the keys that we're not sure?
Yeah.
If they got them back?
Yeah. We clarified that this week that we asked, right? Another question is, still bugs me that the trash department, so much dog poop inside and out. MTs had to scrape it off outside. and they sat around watching movies in that mess. I just don't think so. And they never answered the question of Christian's missing boat suit valued at $1,000. Yeah, we verified that Christian didn't live that way. We verified it with Taylor, and other people have commented that Christian was a clean person.
And it was even in the report.
Right. And as far as his boat suit, that was Dylan. That was Dylan's story, and no one else's. So,
We got Julie joining us.
yay!
Hey.
Another question is, where did all the holes in the apartment walls come from, and how many are there? Was it that way prior to Josh leaving on his last hitch, and if not, where did they come from? We're gonna have to get back to that. We meant to ask Josh this week, and I spaced over it. The knife that Christian's grandfather gave him, I believe it was a collectible. How did it get animal blood on it? Like law enforcement tried to say that they ruled it as. If it was a collectible, chances are Christian nor his grandfather probably used those, and were they ever checked for fingerprints? Not according to anything that we have, were they ever checked for fingerprints, and we don't know anything about how animal blood got on them. I mean, this all goes back to the lack of investigation, right? So we can't, other than things that we can verify with family, friends, witnesses, we can't speculate other than anybody or more than anybody else can. So we're not sure. Do you guys want to? I gotta go let my dog out. Sorry. Do you guys want to answer that one, and then I'll be right back.
Okay. Christy, you want to answer that?
What was the question? The luminol?
The one that Jennifer just asked.
So the luminol behind the door, I don't know why it stops. Was that because that they think the door was open, or
That's what I believe. The door was open when he was shot, so there was something blocking.
That makes the most sense.
Or there was someone standing there.
Or someone was standing there.
But I think it's more of like a squarish shape, So I think it's the door.
Well, that would make more sense, because that way it would allow for more people to be in there.
Yeah. Julie, what do you think? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm outside and my husband's doing some things, so I muted so you didn't hear his background stuff, so I apologize. But to be honest, I was trying to get on, and then I don't know that I heard all of the question of what you guys were talking about just right now.
Oh, talking about the luminol and the void behind the door.
I am not too savvy with some of the luminol. More of the crime scene stuff I feel a little bit stronger with. So, but with the void in the door, I mean, there were statements: the door is open, the door is closed. How does blood get on the outside of the door? Which I understand. I've heard 500 explanations on why people that was. But didn't they say that there was blood like outside in the hall as well?
Yes, on the carpet, I believe, outside,
Right.
and also in the door jamb. There was blood.
Well, we know that there was blood in the door jamb because the luminol hit there.
Right.
So that's easily verifiable.
I just can't believe they didn't take their clothes.
Well, they could have also changed clothes.
Sorry.
They had hours.
Was it Christy that was knowledgeable about some of the blood evidence and with the tub, or was that someone else?
Yes.
Christy.
Yes, I found that.
Okay.
I was just had to have been hours.
My guess, and from some of the different pictures I'd seen, with giving that rough estimate on the time frame, it's like 4.5 to 5 hours that blood was in the tub with when the picture was taken.
Yeah, I agree with that because of the different stages of drying and the outline of it.
Absolutely.
Julie, which photo are you referring to? The one that's like crusty blood, or the one that's like bright blood with the darker rim around it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And another thing that you have to take into consideration too is that when when there's a wound, right? You're not going to just, all your blood's not going to just come gushing out of it, right? It's going to take time. And so we'll get into this further too when we go over like the autopsy and whatnot, but like the amount of blood that was in that tub took a while to get there. It wasn't like he shot himself and all that blood just came rushing out. It had already started moving out of the tub. Like, a bathtub is built so that water can drain down. So it has like a natural graduation to it. And that blood had already started leaving the building.
Well, and we know when he was taking pictures of the bathroom, when he started to take pictures, it was noted in, they took a picture of a clock off into the side. There's a picture of a clock. So we know at time, and there was that much blood there. And it was supposedly less than an hour, less than maybe 30 minutes, because I thought one of the clocks said 5:17, but I could be wrong on that. But when you look at also the picture of the bullet, I don't know if you showed the close-up picture, you can see the different textures of the blood. You can see it like separating. You can tell that it's thicker in some parts and thinner in other parts, more watery, because that's the plasma separating. Or
with the coagulation.
Yes, you can see that, and the very dark rim around the edge. And we know that he wasn't there for 4 hours taking pictures.
Right.
And they even note in the narrative that it was coagulated.
Yes.
And it's not going to coagulate in 30 minutes.
And we also have to remember, this is not a CSI team. This is Meridian. If I can say that without insulting people. Like, these are not a crime scene team, a forensic team, You're
not insulting anybody. That's,
it's just,
I said it earlier.
They're just not equipped. They weren't trained to look for these things. And quite frankly, this is how things get shuffled under the rug. If you don't have someone advocating for you.
Right.
To answer your question about whether or not Whitley had any blood on her, we have no idea. Well, in a narrative, right? No, I think it was someone was talking in an interview, stated that there was no blood on Whitley, but they never took her clothes. They never took pictures of her. So, we don't really know the answer to that question, but I believe that there was no blood on her because I don't believe she was ever holding him or hugging him.
No.
And I think that that's something that would have been noted had, they transported her or they had her come down to the police station for an interview. Like, that's just, I believe, even though we know that they don't do a thorough job, that's just something that they would have noted, that, Dylan was covered in blood or Whitley was covered in blood. And I just think that those are things that they would have noted. I would hope.
Don't
especially
forget,
when the first responders, the first responders were, not really believing the suicide narrative. So I would think for sure that they would have noted that.
Definitely.
It's also pretty it's encouraging how much detail that all of them remember that Arrington interviewed when he took their statements. They remembered a lot of detail, more detail than Dylan has given in any of his statements or whenever he's given an interview. He doesn't remember this or he's not sure about that. There was an event in my life when I was 19 years old and I saw an accident and a man was killed. And I could tell you so much about that night, what it smelled like, because it was right by a strawberry field and it was a hot July night. There was just so many details. Every time we go by that intersection, I tell my kids that story. It's burned in my brain, and that's over 20 years ago. I just have a hard time with them just saying, I don't know.
Yeah, because they forget their lies.
That's right.
So
because
it's easier
they're
to
not
say,
true.
I don't know.
Right. And then they could just get away with that.
Yep.
Back
So
to the cup and the beer bottle.
Oh, yes.
Did police dispose of that? Did family dispose of that? Did anybody glove up and like even try to save any evidence?
No.
no.
The cup is still in there when Josh takes pictures.
Okay. I couldn't remember that part for sure. But then I didn't know if
And I
Yeah,
when
think
they
it
didn't
they
was
take
went in
them.
though to
anything.
go clean up, if they tried to save anything that they felt was evidence. Obviously, they turned in the shirt, which disappears, or the tank top rather.
I'm purely
Correct?
speculating here because this isn't something that I've even asked anybody before, but I think that they're the ones that noticed, hey, that bottle of Dosaki's, Christian didn't drink that beer. You know what I mean? Like, so somebody had to have, I don't know if it was through pictures or if it was through actually seeing it on the counter, like Josh may have saw it and said, that beer doesn't go here. Like, that doesn't fit.
There's
Well,
no
and you
inventory of it
no,
in
and
the
you can
case
see in
file.
the picture of the bathroom picture, and you can see Christian in the picture. You can see that the Dos Equis has about an inch of beer left.
Yeah.
So who drank it? It wasn't Christian.
And according to Whitley's story, she wasn't even home the whole day and night before. So who was drinking beer between 9 a.m. and 11, or when, when was this partying even taking place? Like, she knew Christian was coming home and she didn't think to clean up. That's just weird to me. Bizarre.
But when you're taking bars of Xanax, that's probably not a concern.
Yeah.
Now
You're right
That
there.
the Xanax
lifestyle,
thing though,
not a concern.
but
Yeah.
when did she take the Xanax though? I mean, I don't think that's ever really been determined. Like if she took it the night before, would she really be that affected, at 11:30 the next day? I don't know. I've never taken Xanax, so
I don't.
Jennifer,
I
he
think it
left on the
depends on
22nd.
how much you take and how often you're taking. I was told that she had 4 bars of Xanax, which means there's 4, like, let's call them pills, I guess. They have perforated lines, I believe, usually on them. It depends on where you're getting this prescription or, medication as well. But you can even break off the pieces because it would be like different doses.
mhm.
And you probably have better notes of my log days with that conversation, but I do believe it was stated in there how much she had supposedly taken.
It was 4 bars.
But I mean, I think it was kind of over like a period of time. But then that day, I want to say she had like maybe a full bar. But by the end of like that evening, I don't think she had any left.
Hmm.
But I think this was a usual drug for her to abuse. That was like a drug of choice, on top of other things, I'm sure, but that was one of the favorites.
Right. So she could have a tolerance to it.
Yes, you can definitely build a tolerance to it, and I think the more an addict gets the effects of the drug, of course, like with any drug, the more you're going to want to use it. Keep
Mm-hmm.
yourself in a cloudy
Certain
state
state.
of mind, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It says, according to Google, that Xanax can stay in your system for about 11 hours. According to it takes to be eliminated. Like the average person eliminates half of a Xanax dose from their system in about 11 hours. I don't know if that means like, you know, you have that means you're feeling the effects of it that
I
long.
think everybody's metabolism is different, and it also depends on the dose that you're taking.
Okay.
So, I mean, rough estimates, That's probably a good, like, rough estimate, but I do believe you can take, let's say, 1/4 of a bar at, let's just say, 8 a.m. And then, a couple hours later, you're taking another dose off the bar because remember, there's like 4 doses on a bar. So if you're taking it every few hours as well, not only are you like keeping that effect of the medication, but there's obviously medication still in your system for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know that was it Whitley that said that Christian had been drinking and was doing drugs, that
Yes.
he had been partying and came home, and in fact, he had nothing. He only had
Yes.
caffeine, and she was the one who had been partying.
Yeah,
Can
she claimed
Xanax?
he was home for the whole weekend and drinking and partying because he lost his job.
And we know he wasn't home at all because we have his phone records and his phone
Right.
pings, and he was not home.
And he wasn't on anything, and he didn't lose his job. So the entire statement was false.
So I guess the question is does Xanax, I guess maybe it's each person, but can they have manic episodes where they are completely, coherent and they know exactly what's going on, to completely dead asleep where they're high and low? I thought Xanax was meant to make that so it doesn't happen.
I guess if you have a mental health disorder and you need the Xanax, then it's going to work the way that it's supposed to. If you don't, then it will work in the opposite direction, right?
So
I don't know. I'm not a
Xanax
medical
and in high
professional.
doses can make people sleepy.
Because she was like
assume
drugged out
with
half the
her-
time. Sorry.
True. She, I do believe, was and continued to be in her life. But no, I mean, Xanax in a high dose, I mean, it can, in a sense, knock you out, like, where you're gonna sleep. But I do believe, Dylan walking in frantically asking her, hey, where's Christian? Or we need to check on him and whatever. I don't think she would just roll over and go back to sleep.
Yeah, he said he couldn't wake
Depending
her
on
up.
which statement you want to take of hers, she had already seen him, right?
Yeah.
And then she went and laid back down. Then Dylan came in. I mean,
Well, it
you hear
depends.
some of
Yeah,
these
who
statements.
knows?
I was like, reading through the lies and the truth, I don't think you'll ever really know the answer to some of that.
And we know that, we'll get there eventually, but there's proof in the text messages to Matt between the communication between Matt and her that he called her out on saying that she found Christian. And now we have this in the narratives. We have this other detectives, or a detective or a first responder, saying that she said she found Christian. So we have 2 people that she has told that she found Christian. And then we have other people that she told that Dylan found Christian. So when you have stories like that, like, 2 people aren't going to make that up. I mean, and it's proof in communication between her and Matt, right? That she found Christian. And then you have this first responder saying she said she found Christian. I mean, it's because they didn't have they had enough time, but they didn't have enough time to get their stories to line out perfectly.
Correct. I also
that
feel
far ahead.
that it's being in the spotlight, the attention, the poor Whitley. You found your boyfriend. And I think soaking up and abusing every relationship you can. I mean, Matt, come and pick me up. Christian's kicking me out.
Yeah. Which they say Christian sent that text to, come on.
Yeah, but what did she say? Whose name did I say last night? Come on.
The other side says that was a setup to get Matt there so that Christian could kill Matt, her, and then himself. If that's the case, then why didn't he kill Whitley and then himself? Why didn't he kill Dylan, Whitley, and then himself? He had every opportunity to take someone else's life. Dylan handed him the gun back, right? And left. Yeah, Christelle has a good point. It's easy to remember the truth. It's harder to remember a lie.
Absolutely. That's why there's some things that don't change and a lot does. The important stuff does change.
I know there's always question about the hole by the outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I respect everyone's opinion because I mean, we don't really know for sure what that is. To me, with what I do get to see in the pictures, it does to me look like a bullet hole. The bullet would stick in there though, obviously into the wall. But I believe it was easily wedged out, thrown in the tub just to go along with the narrative. And if you look at the pictures of the bullet as well, with the substance, I mean, yes, I'd love to have that tested because I do think that that's drywall.
I agree with you,
Some small
Julie.
particles.
Yeah, I read the other side thinks it's brain matter, and I'm like, still?
Still?
Yeah,
Still.
or well, I also heard skull fragments, but that they wouldn't
skull fragments
stick that way. Yeah,
that's new.
Well, and I mean, we can all. That's what we're doing here, right? We weren't there. We don't know, so we can all speculate. I am with you, Julie. I think that strike mark is from the bullet, and I know that other people don't, and it's completely fine. Like, that's what we're doing here. I just think that it went. I think it stuck too. My personal opinion is whoever shot Christian got him from behind in a chokehold, put the gun to his head gangster style, and that bullet went through and into the wall. That's just my theory.
I forgot. I wanted to touch on this. Somebody said that that has to be the bullet because it had DNA on it, and the bullet that was in the tub, but it's gonna have DNA on it because it was in the blood. It was sitting in the blood. So it could also not be the bullet that went through his head. That could be a different bullet. It did have his DNA on it because it was in the blood, but like you said, someone could have thrown it in there.
Yeah.
Well, and it didn't mushroom.
The casing.
It didn't mushroom.
Did you say that was also in the tub? The casing.
Yes.
The report says the casing was butt down in the tub.
Think about this. I don't care where you're shooting a gun. Bullet goes one direction, casing goes the other for the most part.
Right.
And the casing being in the tub makes the most sense.
And I agree with where am I.
It depends on the gun, to be honest. It either goes kind of like back and behind or a little bit to the side, but they don't both end up in the same spot.
Area.
Right.
Yeah. I agree that if that was a bullet mark in the wall, that it would be much deeper. I mean, it was kind of like a surface scratch. There really wasn't an indent.
No, it's pretty. It looked.
There's a picture.
Like you could put your finger in it.
Yeah.
That's how I take it.
I'll have to look at it again. It didn't look like that to me.
I mean, I have little fingers, but I think I could put my finger in it.
Sorry.
Stop it, Christy.
Sorry. I was naughty.
Yeah.
Wait, is that Christy doesn't agree?
No.
No, she's laughing at my fingers.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I just said just the tip.
Well, I'm getting text messages that say midget fingers right now, so I thought that was. No, they're not. They're just tiny.
You're tiny.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I could see it hitting that wall.
Well, and that might explain more of the blood spatter, actually.
Because it did go that way, and they just didn't get it cleaned up well enough.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that counter was clean. That is the cleanest place in the house.
That bathroom was clean. The floor, it looked mopped, right? Like, I mean, I know it's just photos, but like, it looked clean. And these were 17 and 21-year-old kids. Like, that bathroom looked clean.
They weren't kids.
Sorry, you know what I mean.
Young adults.
I did.
The 1911, is that the weapon that Christian would leave at the apartment for Whitley, or was that the gun that was usually in his lockbox, like on his vehicle?
So I asked Taylor that the other night. I asked when we were talking to Taylor, I asked him about that, and he said that because that gun was so expensive, he personally doesn't think that he would have left it in the Jeep. That's just his personal opinion. And you know, we don't know because we don't, you know, the lockbox and the gun being in the Jeep and the money being gone from a lockbox, all of that is just.
It was never investigated, so.
Right. But, you know, when you ask people that know Christian, like, is this possible? Is that possible? Is this possible? Like, when you hear people that actually knew Christian talk that don't have a motive, like there's no motive for these people to lie, it just makes more sense in your brain. Like, to me, it made more sense talking to Taylor about the condition of the apartment, how messy it was. It made more sense asking him about the gun, would it have been in the Jeep or left at home. I mean, he didn't say, yeah, he left it home because of Whitley being there. He just said it's possible that he had it at home because it was an expensive gun.
The Where Am I talks about the bullet mushrooming. We lived in an apartment and we had a gun, and I took a gun safety class. This is a long time ago, but I remember my husband told me specifically that we had to have these bullets because there was a family that lived next door and they had kids, and if there was anything that happened, we wanted bullets that wouldn't go through the wall into the next apartment or into the apartment above us, that it was meant not to travel really far. Was those kind of bullets, right?
Well, it's meant to mushroom when it hits flesh. If it doesn't hit flesh, it won't mushroom. That one didn't mushroom. And when it mushrooms, it's designed to stay inside of the target. So like if you're shooting a deer, it's designed to never leave the deer. But if it doesn't mushroom, then it will go through. I just find it hard to believe that it would have malfunctioned.
Yeah, and Jennifer also says that she never leaves her gun in the car. I'm in Oregon. I don't take my gun anywhere, but I know in Texas people do. If Jennifer lived in Texas, and but I wouldn't. We don't even take our gun hardly out of the gun safe. I know it's different in the South. People have them everywhere, but I can't imagine leaving a gun in a car just like under a seat, or even in a lockbox that's not bolted to the car, so they could just take the box and then they could open it.
Well, isn't that part of gun safety? Like when you get your concealed, like your license, like you talk about not leaving it in your vehicle, and
because then I'm liable.
Right.
And I don't believe that gun was used. I don't believe that gun was used, and I don't believe that was the bullet. Because the gun didn't have anything on it. And if it was so tight to his head, it would have blood and all kinds of stuff all over it.
It must have cleaned it.
Or the gun was wiped clean just like the apartment, though. Or the bathroom, rather. I'm sorry.
But it would be inside the barrel. Like, what, did they take the gun apart and clean it? There would be something on that gun somewhere. I mean, but we'll never know because they didn't investigate that.
There's a lot of people that don't think it was that gun. I cannot weigh in on that because I know nothing about guns, so I don't weigh in on it.
The whole fight in the beginning about them fighting over the gun, he said, "Do you love me?" I don't believe any of that. I think that was all set up to say that she got the gun so she could say also that she had the gun, and that Dylan said that he could, if he had any gun residue, that he touched the gun. I think that was all set up to lead up to say if there was anything on their hands. Well, yeah, because I touched the gun, or I took it away, I hid it. I made it secure behind the curtain.
So this is way off of our topic tonight, but I do want to make note of it. We'll come back to it at a later date. But when I was going through the narratives, pulling them apart for crime scene highlights, I stumbled upon another narrative, and I'll just leave it at this until we come back to it. But there are 2 people that say that Whitley didn't shoot that night. 2.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Matt. 2 people that were there out of the 4 that we know were there for sure. 2 of the 4 say that Whitley didn't shoot.
Well, of the gun night that didn't happen?
Yes, the gun night that didn't happen on February 25th.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
2 of the 4 people said that she didn't shoot. 2 people, including Whitley, said she did.
That's because that didn't even happen.
That's because they needed an alibi. Somebody asked any theories on the motive. First and foremost, in true crime, you don't need a motive.
Nope.
Second, I think should I leave this alone?
What? Say it.
Your theory?
Yeah.
Hi, Matt.
It's your opinion. You're not stating it as fact.
He's not naked, I promise. He has shorts on.
Streaking in the background.
It's hot.
It is hot. I will say, I think if there is a motive, that the motive was that Whitley was done with Christian and she was ready to move on. And she was with a certain group of people a few nights prior and told them that Christian would be coming home and would be harming them, hyped them up, and
showed them old text messages from the month before.
And then we are where we are right now. That's my thought. And when you take people on drugs, known drug addicts, and paranoia is a real thing in the type of drugs that these people do, it could escalate things very quickly. Starring.
What, you can see me every time? You want my belly?
Stop. He was golfing and he wasn't supposed to be home.
I think she was done because the way she talked to him in text message, she was very dismissive of him.
Yep.
Yeah, but usually when she played that way. Go ahead.
She was setting up already. Like, if you could, in the text messages, she was saying things to Christian like, pretty much like she was done. And then she was also like,
she said, "You'll always have a special place in my heart."
Yeah. And then she was already like, I think that she was trying to move in on Matt to have her next place.
Yeah. She was setting up the next guy.
So but it wasn't going to work with him. I mean, it never, I personally think that he wasn't interested in anything other than what happened that night before. But she was like already like, he's kicking me out, come get me. Why would she call him to come? Why wouldn't she call her mom or her aunt or her grandmother or a family member or anybody else other than Matt to come get her? If it was just
she said his name the night before.
Yeah.
As you said, setting up the next relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
That she knew that if she pulled away, it would make him come after her. She plays those games. She's known how to play men for a long time. And she knew that if she pulled away and was not responsive, he would come home.
Yeah.
Learned by family example, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Learned
sad.
behavior.
Yeah.
It is sad.
Along with probably trauma. But a lot of people have trauma in their life and they have a lot of garbage, but they
And they don't kill people
kill people, and
or
they
cheat.
don't, yeah, or take their money or take advantage,
I was
and
just
they
gonna say
do.
that.
Or do drugs
You
like
don't take
that.
their debit card to the bank and try to close out the account.
Yeah. I mean, we grow up and we're adults and hopefully we take responsibility for our actions. They just need to come clean. They'd sleep a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
That's why they stay high.
Yep.
Yep.
But research and technology only gets better with time. And the DNA on that gun and what they're able to do will only benefit Christian's case in the long run as
If they
technology
do
gets
it.
better. If they do
If
it.
they- We need them to do it. Like, we have to put it out there, right? We're going to put it out there that this is the year for Christian. This is going to be his year that we see an end to this. We have 6 months left, right?
If it does, though, I have watched so many true crime shows that get ruled a suicide, and then years and years and years and years later, it gets reopened. Even if it doesn't, I have faith that the truth will come out. I
do too. I do.
I do. And even if we don't get the response that we want, I stand by the technology, and the science only gets better with time. And there's no statute of limitation on murder. There's none.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can just keep saying this over and over again for the next 3 hours if we want, but you can't look at what we presented tonight and not have any doubts in your mind, right? And when things are taken to trial, like, you have to convict somebody beyond a reasonable doubt, right? So what about when it's a suicide? Like, how can you just say, yes, it's a suicide, and there's all this doubt? How come it doesn't work that way? Like, somebody needs to come in and say, enough is enough. Do your jobs. Investigate this to the fullest. Keep all outside things out of this and do your dang jobs. Do your jobs. And I don't care what anybody else says about they did their jobs. There's been 11 investigations. No, there hasn't. No, there has not.
And not only
There's
that,
not.
in situations like this, it's typically a murder. I mean, like 9 out of 10 times, it's going to end up being a murder. And I do not believe this is the one out of 10.
And if it's a suicide, why are we having to fight, or why are they having to fight so hard to prove that it was?
There's just so much that does not add up.
Yeah, just the science alone.
The physics, the biology, it's physically impossible.
You mean it's not physically possible to shoot yourself with your right hand and have the gun land on the left side and point back to the right?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
The left hand, they're saying the left hand took it back to the
And have your arms outside of the tub.
And then you dropped it right there by your left hip, and then you just gracefully fell, and then you turned your head the other direction.
And you made it very clean. You made it very clean.
No splatter. And you were kneeling, but you were standing so the arms could get out.
But you were also doing the hokey pokey, turning yourself around, and then throwing your arms outside the tub.
Right. If we go with that scenario, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with any of them. They just need to come clean.
How about the lividity on the back of the couch?
Oh man.
Oh,
Julia.
I'm just gonna say that doesn't add up for me.
No.
but it's because of how he was transported, Julie.
Yeah, because he was flipped over back and forth. You know, they just tossed him out. Give me
No,
a
it's
break. They
because he
treat him
was
with
in that
respect.
bathroom for hours and his body is in
Yeah.
a different position. But okay, no.
Yep.
And he wasn't in
Also,
rigor.
Yet he was
But-
transported face down the same way he was
Okay,
over
thank
the
you.
tub.
I was like, how do I say this? If family's listening, I nowhere anyway want to be disrespectful, but that was something I wanted to mention, but I didn't know how.
You did great.
Yeah.
Also, my opinion, my gut feeling is that somebody was already in that bathroom waiting for him that he didn't know was in the house.
You my girl. I'll text Susan and I'll be like,
that they were
"Da-da-da-da-da."
kind of hiding in the bathtub, waiting for him to come up in there. And I also think that it's possible he got there. They probably did fight and argue. I mean, I could understand that probably did occur, but I feel that he was led to go up there because that's what needed to happen.
I swear I didn't coach
opinion.
her. I swear I didn't
I've
coach
never
her.
talked to you.
And it happened early.
That I'm
It
aware of.
happened.
It happened within the first 20 minutes of him being home because he got a text message within 20 minutes of being home that he never answered.
Yeah.
I would agree to that, yes.
But see, I have a hard time with someone being in the bathroom. But then, I mean, I don't know. It's possible, but
They ran up there with their
they would have
gear.
had
Come
to have
on.
led him there.
Oh. I don't know if that would be accurate, but I'm not trying to blame anyone on that part, but I do believe that even when he was gone, it's very apparent to me that there were people in that house that he would have not approved of.
Yes.
Yep.
Partying, enjoying themselves, and
Or waiting.
They can't even get the first story. Dylan told somebody that when he walked in, Whitley was asleep. In another statement, they said they walked in and Whitley said, "What the F is he doing here?" about Christian being there. And they can't
about Dylan being there.
Well, Christian walked in, but Whitley said to Dylan, "What the F is he doing here?" But one time she's awake and one time she's asleep. So obviously whatever happened when they first got there was a lie. Whatever the first interaction was, in my mind, is a lie because he can't keep his story straight. There are some things that he repeats and he says, I think they happened, but they happened at a different time than he says they did.
Because Whitley already knew that he was coming. Dylan had already spilled the beans on exactly what he was going to be doing that morning, picking up Christian. And I think that gave them plenty of time to kind of throw things together and set things up, especially when Dylan's on the road picking them up.
And when they talk about, oh, there's no way they hacked the phones and to make things set up. I'm signed into an old iPhone 8 and I'm signed into my current iPhone, and my daughter will use it to talk to her friend and will text and she'll respond for me, and you can't tell which phone it came from or where it's coming from. It looks just like it was sent from me. You can't. And you can be signed on wherever your Apple ID is signed into. So I have an iPad and then I have it on the Mac. And you can text from any one of those locations. I was texting my friend Katie, and her daughter replied. And she was like, "Why are you saying that?" And she didn't realize her daughter had replied. And it was just this. And it's all convoluted. So there's no hacking that needs to be had there.
Well, and I keep saying over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you don't have to hack what you have access to. It's not hacking.
It's not.
It's grabbing it, doing what you need to do, and putting it down. It's not hacking. I don't know where he hacked anything came from. You don't have to hack something you have access to.
And she had an iPad, and
yeah, and we know that he told her to look in their notes, like look in the notes. So she had access to his Apple ID.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And probably vice versa. You know, it seems like they shared a lot between the two of them. So why isn't it feasible that things could have been manipulated in that phone? It's very feasible.
Going back to even banking information, I think she had everything but the PIN number, no?
Yeah.
Between those
And-
text messages and phone call and
She had it written down on a piece of paper that was in the apartment.
She had access to his bank account, and we found that in a text message just a few days ago because I was going through the text messages and I found a text message where she says something about PlayStation music or something came out of both of their accounts. So she could see her account and his account. And so she knew how much money was in his account because she references it in a text and says, oh, shoot, blah, blah, blah came out of my account and your account this month. And he was like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. So she had a bank account. So this whole thing about she didn't have a bank account and that's why she had a Western Union, blah, blah, blah. She had a bank account somewhere. I think the problem was because it was back in 2014 and it was before Zelle and Venmo and Cash App and, you know, the functionality of being able to just transfer money quickly. That's why he was Western Unioning her money, because her bank wasn't at the same bank as his. But she clearly had access to his bank account because she knew how much was in there and how much he had been debited for that debit, as well as her.
she might have access to like the bank records, but what on that paper she had, did it have the PIN number?
No.
No.
They
Okay,
didn't have the PIN number.
What I wanted to clarify.
That's why he
then,
went
I
in.
was like, I thought she didn't have that. Okay.
No, she
No,
had
but-
everything but that.
But we know that she had, you know, she knew what his account was.
And my next question is, where was his debit card found at the end of the day? Did Dylan still have it, or was it back at
It
the
was
It was
on
on
the
the
table.
coffee table.
Okay.
That to me seemed placed to like the keys, those two keys that were sitting there, like the debit card looked like it would just sit there. I mean, and there's no way to know. Like, it could have been very well he walked back in and threw it on the coffee table and said, here's your card back. You know what I mean? But to me, it looks placed. Like the ring.
Right when the cops figured out, did the cops ever figure out that Dylan was texting Christian after he left the bank?
They
Do you
never
think
looked
No.
at anything.
They saw the timestamp on the picture and said, oh yeah, there he is. Look, he's on the phone. But then they never matched up with his records. That seems like a big red flag.
Well, had they
didn't
looked
he
at
call
it,
his friend that
didn't.
worked at the bank?
Yeah,
He was on the phone with his
him.
friends.
That's who he was on the phone with, not Christian.
Right.
For
I think-
9 minutes. And he talks to Christian for 1.
after the
I think
fact.
the problem with
After
the
the
text
fact.
messages is that they didn't look into anything in that in those phone redactions because they got what they wanted out of those text messages, right? They got the suicidal text, game over. We dug into those text messages. We found the message,
timestamp.
the timestamp that he had already left. And we wouldn't have known that had we not gotten the cell tower pings, because those aren't even in the case file. They were given to Susan. So
Who had those
You know,
originally? Who had all those?
no one.
No, someone did.
Well, Frankie
Oh, yeah.
sent them to me, but
Oh, Frankie. So convenient.
yeah, none of that was in the case file.
Right. The Dylan's call reports in the case file, but the
Only 4 pages of
pings
it.
and
Yeah.
the pings are gone. Why?
Yeah,
Why would
were
they hide
removed.
that?
To me, that wasn't even talked about at grand jury is just, I mean, and that's not even new evidence. That's just right there, plain as day.
That's blatant.
Blatant. Like it was, he thought he would cover his tracks by calling Christian's phone, texting and calling him right after to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I was just at the bank. Now I need to call him. So it shows that there's a record.
He should have hung out a little longer
Yeah.
instead of leaving and then saying, "Hey, man, I'm here." No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah.
And you know who he said he saw at the drive-through at Chick-fil-A? He said he saw him in the parking lot. Do you know who he said he saw? Brett Kennedy.
Who?
What? When?
I read it. He said it on the audio interview. He was going from AT&T because he was saying, "Yeah, I saw my buddy. Yeah, I saw Brett Kennedy in the parking lot, and I got out and talked to him for a sec."
Yeah,
Who's
he's
Brett
just trying to
Kennedy?
fit that in because he knows that he
So
was
he
on the phone
talks
with
to
Brett
him,
all day long.
right? And so now he has to even see him more.
Yeah, Christelle Whitley did have Christian's phone. But what interview was that, Chrissy? Was it one that we don't want to mention?
No, I don't think so. Let me
Yes,
Okay.
Christelle, at the police station. Christian's uncle got it back from her. Well, had a detective go get it back from her after she lied about not having it.
But we're supposed to believe her. Even though how
Well,
many
this is
to be
almost as good as we watched how many movies and then,
Mm.
went got the Chick-fil-A. They went to was it Botanical Gardens? Am I saying that right? They went
Oh,
Bonita.
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 Sorry. There you go. Bonita.
Which is it's Christian's
Then
backyard.
we're taking
Like,
a nap. Then we're, wondering if Christian's taking a shower. So, I mean, how much time did we have?
like 5 hours.
let's reiterate this. Why were you there? How creepy is that? Your friend's fighting with his girlfriend and you're hanging out?
Yep. Because you need to take him back to the boat, right?
He had
But
his own
wouldn't you
vehicle.
also have to have left by what time to make it back
He would have
in
had
time
to
to
have
the boat?
left like at 1:30, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's 4 hours, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he would have had to have been on the road by like 1:30.
But then why would Dylan have left even to go to Best Buy? Like, did anybody ask that ever?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
why
the
didn't Dylan ever
detectives
say,
never
hey,
asked that.
you should be gone by now?
But you know what? I believe that he wasn't going to take his car back with him. I believe that Dylan was going to take him back. And I think that's what the text message of all this before, I mean, not text message, the tweet, all these places, Vicksburg, blah, 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 all before noon. Because remember, he was texting them saying, oh, this is going to all day event with all these things that we're doing. I believe Dylan was supposed to take him back. And I also believe that because I'd have to go back and look, but I believe that Christian was supposed to actually go back to the Vicksburg area to be picked up. And I think that there was the text from the captain that said, call so-and-so before you head back. But I think he was supposed to be going back to Vicksburg to be picked up back up on the boat.
I have to look at the text messages because it's so much information that it's easy to
Because
forget.
they wouldn't have been in the same spot. They're a tugboat. They're moving around. So, when he left it, it's going to be in a different place when he's going back. And I believe that Dylan was supposed to take him back because if he didn't, then he's stuck with 2 vehicles out there.
Yeah. Yeah, because
and the tweet lines up with that to me.
does anybody else have any questions? Want to jump on the panel? We're at almost 3 hours. I can't believe we still have people hanging out with us. Thank you guys all so much.
So in the culpable one, it says I actually had a buddy that saw me. I stopped and parked and talked to him for a second before I got the food. He talked about that, and it could have been in an interview with somebody else. We don't have all those transcripts. But I have another interview that that I can look. But I know I heard him say he saw Brett Kennedy. He got out of his truck, and he talked to him for a sec. And I'm just thinking, your timeline is so tight from the bank to AT&T to Muna to get back. Why would you add some? This is another thing.
Well, the
And
AT&T was
question,
added too. I don't think that happened.
Isn't there a picture of the receipt somewhere? Do we know what time he was there exactly? Like
I
I think it was
106.
106.
106.
We
Yeah.
eat, sleep, and drink this case. We're all 106, 106, 106.
Because
I'm not
AT&T
kidding, I do
is in
dream
the same
about
parking
it.
lot. Yeah, AT&T is in the same parking lot, and he said he went in there, and that was the first time he happened to look at the phone, even though in one of the interviews or statements he gave, he said that he got the phone right after the first fight, so he had it for a while before he left to go. You know, they watched the movie, and they had all this, took the gun away, and whatever, and he never looked at the phone. He had it in his pocket, but he didn't look at it until he was in line at AT&T and just quickly realized it was a battery issue.
Yeah, that whole thing's a lie.
Yeah.
What
it's
kind of
a
battery
total lie.
do you get from throwing a phone across the room?
Well, not only that, she turned
batteries
her
did
phone off at
Right.
9:45 in the morning. So maybe that's why the battery seemed like it was an issue, because she turned her phone off.
Right. There was a battery issue with the iPhones back then. However, what Susan said, she turned her phone off. I don't know. I don't believe it for a minute. And
We know her phone was off, so what could have caused him to break her phone? And the other side always wants us to believe that he smashed her phone into obliteration and it just was done. And that's why she had to use Christian's phone for everything, right?
Yet
there was
she
a
still
phone
says it was a
off.
battery.
So why would he have even broke her phone in the first place if it was off? Like, I could see maybe a couple fighting and then like her having her phone in her hand, texting someone and him saying, "Oh hell no," and like taking it and smashing it, but it was off.
yeah.
And Dylan ended up saying it was just a battery issue. So
Right.
Because he probably just turned it on.
yeah.
I think at
Briefly
that
turned
point
it
he
on.
realized in his story that he had to say that it was a battery issue because there was a possibility that somebody could get their hands on that phone and say, "This phone isn't broken."
Yeah, it was never broken.
Well, and I wonder if he did turn it on then. And so he had to say, "Oh, I got it turned on." And he was
It wasn't
concerned
turned
about
on.
it.
Yeah,
Wasn't. Do you know when it got turned back on?
It was just all a lie. It was just a lie to make up for her having Christian's phone. But she
If
had
it
a
was turned
burner
on,
too.
it never-
She was using that.
She had a burner
If it-
phone, right?
Yeah, she had a
Yes.
burner phone. She was using that.
And
Right.
through a
Contact Matt.
third party, I was also told that he like had smashed and broke the phone into the wall.
What 17-year-old girl turns a phone off at 9 a.m.?
One that doesn't
Right.
want to be pinged.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And why didn't anybody ever interview Brett Kennedy?
Everybody asks that. Everybody asks that.
Considering that Dylan talked to him like the entire day.
Because we're the only ones that know he talked
At
to him
4
the entire
a.m. or
day.
whatever.
They never looked.
He was talking to Brett Kennedy as he was driving to pick Christian up in the wee hours of the morning. Do these people not sleep, first of all? Second of all, who's having a conversation? Like, I'm not a boy, and I don't like talking on the phone. And Dylan's just chit-chatting with everybody as he's driving down the road.
So a while ago, I was, somebody said, I'm not going to name who, but this person was upset because they said, should every case of self-harm be investigated as murder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And
Mhm.
my response was, yeah, it should. It should be investigated as self-harm.
Every death is investigated as a homicide until it's proven otherwise. Every
Well,
death.
And not every homicide goes to trial or that gets prosecuted either. It just means that you died at the hands of someone else. Isn't that right? Isn't that the what homicide means? Right.
Right.
So not every case of homicide is prosecuted or goes to trial or go to the DA or grand jury or whatever. That's what that means. And so there was an article written by it was like 10 mistakes at a death scene. It was on this thing called Coroner Talk, but it says the psychology, and we talked about that at the beginning, gets tainted, and it's just like it just permeates through the whole thing, and we can clearly see that that's what's happened here. Because then had they gone in and had the assumption of murder or homicide instead of suicide, for fact, without a doubt, this case would have been investigated 150% differently. But they didn't. Suicide tainted and permeated everything they touched. It colored every lens that they looked through, and they did a disservice to this family, and it's hurt this entire department.
They did a disservice to Christian.
Absolutely.
100%. I mean, of course, it was a disservice to the Andrakio's and the department and anybody that's not scandalous. But Christian is the one here that deserves more. He deserves more. And he didn't
Very
get it,
well
and it makes
said.
me angry. I just anybody would want their son to have justice, right? And like I said the other day, we were talking to somebody about the case in a FaceTime call. And I said, wouldn't this be easier? Painful? Yes. But easier? 100%. If they could just, if it was a proven suicide, it'd be over. They could heal, they could move on. But when everything is pointing the exact opposite way, anybody in their right mind is going to want justice for their child.
Mm-hmm.
It does not make sense to wake up every single morning like Groundhog's Day and punish yourself over and over and over and over and over and over again for 7 years.
And
Just
the
because
only
you can't let go. That's not it. It's not it.
the only thing that even remotely says suicide, which I don't believe it does say suicide, is the text messages, and those
That's it.
mean absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we proved last week that there's text messages in the reverse, and there's lots more of them in the reverse than there are in the suicide realm. And we have proven time and time again, the statistically proven suicide is not as it appears in this case. Christian did not make any proclamations of love randomly prior to the suicide. He did not give away any of his possessions. Handing his debit card to somebody saying going to take my money out is not giving away possessions.
He was actually in the middle of trying to purchase a new bike after he sold the bike that he was trying to sell in those days before.
The parts bike, yeah. And he was setting himself up for responsibility. If you take statistics and you look at Christian's case through that circle, he's a square. I'm sorry, he's a square, and he doesn't fit.
Not at all.
Nope.
And people say, "Oh, well, not every person shows sign of depression before they take their life. Look at Robin Williams." Really?
Do we know Robin Williams?
Exactly. We don't know what he displayed prior.
Mm-mm. Or intimacy in their home or with his wife. I mean, or anything.
It's just so freaking frustrating. Anyways.
All right. I need to go watch Monk with my kid.
Okay. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're jumping on 3 hours later.
We had you backstage this whole time.
I know. I felt like a groupie back there. It was
Thank
fun.
you,
Yes, you're
Vanilla
welcome.
Iced. Thank you, Vanilla Iced. You're exactly right. He did commit suicide because of gender medical issues. You're 100% right.
Of degenerative. What's that?
He was going downhill
Yeah.
Oh.
medically.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. I said I was going to leave.
It's okay. No, she made a good point. And Scrambled Mind makes another point. Why would anybody go to the lengths they're going to keep it from being investigated? That's all Ray has asked for, is a true investigation. If there's nothing to hide, you hide nothing. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing to hide, you hide nothing.
Didn't he have MS? I
Yes.
can't remember. Yeah.
One of those disorders.
Yeah. So it wasn't depression. He was just trying to not be a burden.
And we'll get to we'll get to like the medical examiner's report and the coroner report, and we have like
thanks, Stacy. Sorry.
We have asked people if Christian had any history of depression, like medical history of depression, and no, he did not. So I'm just going to say this quickly, and we'll go over it thoroughly later. But for a medical examiner to state that he had a history of medical depression without actually getting into his medical records and proving that her whole findings should be tossed. There's not one thing in any sort of medical record of Christian's that states depression in any way, shape, or form. So how did she come to that conclusion? Because she was told.
Yeah, and we talked to a medical examiner, and hopefully she'll come on. She's real busy, but hopefully she'll come on when we go over the autopsy report, because she was very insightful for me when I spoke to her.
Christy, your mic was fine. I didn't hear anything. Does anybody else have any other questions? I have to eat dinner. I haven't eaten. I'm so hungry. Right. I agree. Vanilla Ice, completely reckless for her to say that. She had nothing to back that. There's nothing in his medical history to back a depression diagnosis at all.
No, they never expected anyone to be looking into this. They expected it just to be accepted as a suicide and move along. So all the mistakes that they made, they never thought would see the light of day.
I can't remember what we have for next week. Do you remember? It's in my notes.
I do not.
Wait. I think maybe next week is autopsy. It's in my notes somewhere.
I'll have things in order.
It wasn't your fault. I'm just going to email it to you from now on instead of texting. Yeah. So next week is autopsy. Yeah. Because when you click through like screenshots and then you text them to someone, they don't go in the order that you're clicking. When you email them, they do, because you can see them.
Yeah. And I was just dragging them over. So
yeah.
One by one, dragging it over, not looking at them, not reading them.
I think we got the point across though.
Yeah.
So next week is autopsy, medical examiner, and coroner report. So of course with the autopsy, we're not showing any photos. So sorry, we just won't. Yeah. We'll be reading the findings, and then that's pretty much as in depth as we'll go in the autopsy. And then of course, like there's a lot of knowledgeable people on autopsies and medical examiner reports and coroners, and we've done a lot of studying ourselves, and we can bring what we have found to the table, but as far as photos, they won't be there. Then the week after that, we're going through all of the narratives. So all of the narratives, I won't read them all because that's a lot of words, but there are a lot of narratives that need to be read, because they're not just first responders and law enforcement are in these narratives. We have friends, other people, Matt Miller, Jet Miller, Zach Tabb, Jordan, Dallas, Dallas's stepmom. I mean, we have narratives. So we'll be getting into the meat of those. And then we also have upcoming, we have the grand jury presentation, which is a whole presentation in itself. And you guys are going to be mind blown about how much was left out. And then we'll go from there. We'll outline more and more and more. But we don't know how many weeks this is going to go. We have a lot to cover. We're pulling that whole case file apart and slapping it at you, throwing it up on the screen and saying, here you go. So it's going to be a lot. And gunshot residue is one that we will be covering, and hopefully we'll have an expert on that. And then, so if you guys have any questions, remember, join the group, because we try to always every week ask if anybody has questions. And subscribe, like, join, whatever these little thingies are down here. I'm not YouTube savvy. YouTube is a whole new world for me. And Susan, we're both like, but
yeah, subscribe so you're reminded and you get notified when we go live.
And hashtag Free Britney.
Yeah.
And have a good night, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and all the views. Oh my gosh, that's something that we get updates from people, and they're like, "You had this many views on this video, and this many views on this video," and I'll like run over and look, and then like a couple hours later, of course, I have to go look again. But I'm just like, it's not hundreds of thousands, but for us small peas over here in our corner of the YouTube world, for us to have over 2,000 views, almost like we're inching towards the 3,000 mark on our first video, we're just both like, ah! I mean, it's
We
all
expected
about
like 10 people.
yeah. And the 10 people that we talk to all day, any day, every day anyways. So, but just to be having people watch, because that, you know, like I said, if we can reach one person and that one person goes out and reaches one of their friends, and then down the line to get the word of Christian and his case and his family out there, that we've done our job. Like, we've done everything that we could have hoped for. And then it'll be the icing on the cake when this case is reopened, put in front of the grand jury again, and then we get a bill this time. Right?
Yeah.
Great. That's what we hope for. So, as always, thank you to our incredible mods. And as always, our disclaimer is do not contact anybody in the case. Do not go real life. Everything that we say is our opinion and fact-based off of the case file. We are not specialist experts of any sort. Clearly, I'm wearing a Brittany t-shirt, sitting in my kitchen.
And everybody's innocent until proven guilty.
Until proven guilty. You're guilty. Thank you for joining us, Crystal, all the way from Australia.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Stacey, you don't have to worry about us showing autopsy photos. We will not.
Never.
Ever. Never. I don't even like looking at them myself. So. Okay, hope you guys have a good night. It's
All right.
late for some of you. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
soda in the straw. I'm making a note. And yes, Uncle
Yes.
Snuggle Dixie. Soda and straw. I will not forget this time. I promise.
Can you say that city again?
Oh, gosh.
Don't do it.
Picayune. I'm probably saying it way too slow, too. Picayune, right? Okay. Have a good night. We'll see you guys later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.